New York City, located on the Atlantic coast of southeastern New York State in America, is the largest city and largest port in America. It is one of the largest economic centers in the world and directly affects the finance, media, and politics of all countries on Blue Star. Entertainment and fashion, it's no secret that in New York City you can find everything that is the most cutting edge in the world. In the early morning, as the golden sun rises, hurried people walk out of their homes with proud faces. As local residents, they have the right to be proud because they can feel the most fashionable and top-notch products in the world every day. Everything. Even those who just work here naturally hold their heads high when walking like pilgrims entering a church. For people all over the world, getting a job in New York will be the beginning of rising to the upper class. Among the many companies in New York, the most respected and coveted one is Stark Industries. If entering New York is equivalent to getting a gold brick that can lead you to success, then entering Stark Industrial Group means that you are standing on a golden mountain. As long as you are careful not to get too excited and fall off and break your leg, then your future is destined to be bright, with luxury cars and beautiful girls. But as a member of this golden mountain, young Elbert was very unhappy today because he, a new researcher who had just joined Stark Industrial Group, was on the layoff list not long ago. As a time traveler, Elbert originally did not have much desire. Before he came to this world, he believed in the concept of being rich and contented, and he never asked for anything extravagantly. But after coming to this world, he learned that he is a researcher at Stark Industrial Group, and he has a bright future, and he couldn't be more satisfied. As for this being the Marvel Universe, there will be countless crises in the future. To be honest, Elbert simply forgot about these things after worrying about the gains and losses at the beginning. It's not that he didn't want to take care of it, but that he really couldn't take care of it. There are only two ways to become stronger in the superhero world. The rich rely on technology, while the poor rely on mutation. The former is definitely not relevant to Elbert, who is just a researcher. As for the latter, he can consider taking a challenge, but his professionalism as a former researcher tells him that the fatality rate of most mutations is extremely high. If you want to rely on this, you must first think about whether your life is strong enough. After excluding these 2 points, based on my experience of only watching some Marvel movies, the possibility of becoming strong enough to deal with various crises is almost zero. So Elbert quickly gave up thinking about these things. If the sky falls, there will still be someone tall to hold it up. What's more, according to the movie's routine, Thanos snaps his fingers and half of the life in the universe is wiped out. So what about the superhero? It becomes dust and disappears when the wind blows. Ignoring the possible crises in the future, Elbert tried his best to integrate himself into his new identity. After all, Stark was also a sun-like figure, so he would be much more stable by following him. However, this process is not easy. In his previous life, he was just an ordinary office worker, and although Elbert's predecessor was just a budding researcher, he was also a top student in the physics department. Otherwise, he would not have been recruited by Stark Industries. It took Elbert a lot of time to fully absorb the legacy of his predecessor. Fortunately, everything came over smoothly. This has to be thanked. The working model is almost universal in the world. Newcomers have to start by doing odd jobs. It's just a matter of processing leftover materials. Elbert can still complete it. Elbert, who had completely absorbed the memories of his predecessor not long ago, was informed yesterday that he had successfully passed the probation period and could officially begin to participate in various research projects of Stark Industry. From then on, he reached the pinnacle of his life. It was really a double blessing. For this reason, he also spent his own money to invite his colleagues to have fun, but when he arrived at the company today, he received a layoff notice. You can imagine how depressed he was. But being depressed, Elbert could only pack up his things, receive a relatively generous severance package and leave. There was no reason to argue with a large company like Stark, otherwise the consequences would only be more tragic. Putting the certificate on the table, Elbert casually glanced at the colleagues around him. Many of them had expressions of gloating on their faces. Elbert could only smile helplessly. Everyone was really pushing him against the wall, even if he had been there yesterday. As enthusiastic as a loyal friend, when I heard the news that he was fired today, there was no one to help him clean up. Hey Elbert, I'm sorry that you have to leave today. It's not your fault. We all know that you work very hard, but the company's decision is not something we can change. I hope you can understand. Bao, the director in charge of the management research department, he took back Elbert's ID with a look of regret and comforted him in a low voice. I understand, maybe what I did is not good enough. After all, I just graduated not long ago and I still need to continue to accumulate experience. Putting all his things into the cardboard box, Albert responded with a smile. Although he felt a little unhappy, he didn't it was necessary to show it here, and besides, Mr. Ball had taken good care of him before and he was not the target of his anger. It's best if you think so. Although you have been fired from the company, I believe this will be a valuable experience in your life. If you make good use of it, you will get a lot of things. He patted Albert's shoulder with regret. Bauer turned and returned to his office. He had indeed been optimistic about Albert before, but he couldn't change the above opinion. What's more, with so many people coming and going in Stark Industry every year, even he couldn't guarantee that he would be able to secure his position as director. How could he have any leisure? Think about Albert's stay or leave. After passing the inspection and walking out of the Stark building with his small box in his arms, Albert turned around and looked at the splendid building behind him. Well, it was so dazzling that his eyes were almost blinded. Albert quickly turned around, turned his back to the sun peeking out behind the Stark building, rubbed his eyes fiercely, then raised his legs and strode away from this golden mountain in New York. Stark Industries is one of the landmarks of New York City, and various vehicles are constantly flowing here. Albert is not in the mood to appreciate this magnificent view of the capital world, so he hails a taxi and returns to his current home. The fare plus tip is not cheap, but it's still affordable for Albert. Even though he had just been laid off, Albert was not originally in poverty. On the contrary, he still had a small amount of assets. The house in Manhattan was definitely not cheap. Thanks to the inheritance from his predecessor's parents, Albert could still live here safely, with money in his savings account. He also has a 7-digit savings, which is enough for him to live a stable life for a long time, as long as he doesn't wander around. When Albert returned to the room, he put the cardboard box on the table and lay down on the bed. He wanted to sort out his emotions. During this period, in order to quickly integrate the memory of his predecessor, his spirit was a little too tense. This time he was fired, just relax so as not to leave any hidden dangers. Zizijai? What's the sound? Albert was lying on the bed and was about to take a rest when he suddenly heard several sounds similar to electric current. He stood up and looked at a table in the corner of the room in confusion. It was where his ex was making electricity at home. In the small experiment area, many unpacked original circuit components were scattered on the table, and Albert didn't have the time to sort them out during this time. I remember that the power here was cut off for safety reasons. Albert got up and walked to the table. He checked the power supply. Sure enough, the plug had been unplugged, but the sizzling electric current sound was still there, and it seemed that it's getting louder and louder. Carefully separating a pile of originals, Albert found a transparent box made of insulating material from which the sound came. He frowned and thought for a while before he remembered where this thing came from. There is a simple electric current transformer in the box, but what is connected to the line is not a normal thing, but a reddish-brown rock the size of a finger file with rugged surfaces. This was a graduation gift given to him by his mentor when his predecessor graduated. It is said that an unusual electric current reaction can be detected on this stone. My predecessor studied this for a while, but there was no result. In addition, I was busy looking for a job at the time, so I just put it aside and only took it out occasionally when I was free. Take a look. Now it seems that this is indeed a special stone. Even people with little professional knowledge can see at a glance that this little thing is obviously abnormal because the electric current meter pointer connected to the circuit is moving like a convulsion, crazy twitching. It won't explode, right? Albert felt a little guilty. If this were on a normal blue star, he wouldn't panic, but this is the Marvel universe. Who knows if this stone is a bomb left by a higher civilization? He had just been fired and was blown up by this thing again, so he would be too miserable. Before Albert could decide whether to throw this thing out, the sizzling electric current seemed to have reached its peak, and a visible electric current suddenly erupted from the reddish-brown rock, and the entire circuit was directly burned. Even the inner wall of the insulated box showed signs of melting. This incident directly strengthened Albert's idea of throwing this trouble away. He did not want to die in such an unclear manner. But before he could make any move, a more powerful electric light burst out suddenly, leaving him no time to think. The box as an insulator had no effect at all this time, and the electric current flowed along Albert's arm. It went straight up and enveloped his whole body in the blink of an eye. For a moment, intense pain flowed from his whole body back to Albert's head, as if his whole body was on fire. The searing pain, accompanied by waves of paralysis, invaded his consciousness. Albert desperately wanted to throw it away. He had the stone in his
Hey everyone, welcome to FanFic Canon. Thanks for hitting play. I'm thrilled to bring this fan-made story to life for you. If you enjoy the ride and want more narrated fanfics, smash, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss an episode. And if you want audiobook of a novel of your choice, join my Patreon. Request any title that's freely available online, and I'll produce a full narration just for you. Now, let's dive into today's adventure.
hand, but he didn't even have the strength to move a finger. After 2 seconds, the lightning dissipated and Elbert fell to the ground. However, what is surprising is that there is no trace of electric current on Elbert's body, as if the electric light just now was just an illusion. The only thing that has changed is the hand he was holding the box in, including the box. Everything has been reduced to ashes, leaving only a broken reddish-brown stone, and a lightning logo flashed on the back of Elbert's hand. If Elbert were still awake now, he would find that the flashing frequency of the lightning logo is close to his heartbeat rate, and after the two are completely coordinated, the flashing logo disappears, as if the two have completely merged into one, regardless of each other. Just when Elbert lost consciousness due to a mysterious electric shock, 5 illusory but extremely majestic figures appeared at the end of the universe at the same time. Originally, there was no life here, only endless emptiness. But not long ago, a door appeared here out of thin air. 5 gods and some other beings discovered it, but no matter who they were, they could not shake this door. An ordinary-looking stone gate. After a long period of observation without results, many people gave up and continued to explore, but today it suddenly reacted. After a slight trembling, the electric light wrapped around it began to pass away. After the 5 gods looked at each other, one of them left. When he came out, he just waved his invisible arm gently, and a wave of strong annihilation aura hit the door. Just like the corrosion reaction caused by sulfuric acid dripping on the table, the annihilation wave hitting the door did have a different change, but this change did not last long. A white light rose from the door, which was thin but indestructible. Seeing this situation, the testing gods stopped their movements and disappeared at the same time as several others. Since there would be changes, there would naturally be a result. They had enough patience to wait until the universe came to an end. What's going on? Why am I lying on the ground? The sun has set and darkness has once again enveloped the land. Thanks to Edison for bringing light to the night, even without the sun, the street lights that are always on all night still give the ability of all people to see things. Elbert climbed up from the ground with some difficulty. First, he checked the surrounding environment. While the familiar ceiling was still his own home, he had not traveled through time again. This was good news. He glanced at the alarm clock on the other side of the bed. It was already 9 o'clock in the evening, and I had been in a coma for a whole day. Elbert tried to move his body and soon felt the numbness that had not completely subsided. This immediately reminded him of what happened before he fell into coma, so he immediately looked at his right hand, which he had grasped before. Only a stone broken into several pieces was left in place of the living box. Am I lucky that I didn't get electrocuted? Seeing that the culprit of everything was obviously disabled, Elbert breathed an inexplicable sigh of relief, but soon he felt doubtful. That strong electric shock could definitely easily have killed him, and he still has a slight feeling of paralysis, which clearly shows that this was not a hallucination, so how did he survive? Putting the gravel on the table, Elbert checked his body and the surrounding tables and chairs, but his brows furrowed deeper. Black marks appeared around him after a large number of electric shocks, but there were no scars on his body. Obviously not normal. Is it possible that I have an insulating constitution, or am I directly immune to the damage of electricity? Is this the gold finger that I traveled through time? Elbert, who was puzzled, obviously started to think divergently. Since the conventional logic didn't make sense, he started to think about something very strange. Normally, this is not a normal blue star anyway. The existence of Superman has been confirmed. It is impossible for a time traveler to have no ambitions. The reason why he does not pursue more things is not only his personal mentality, but also the lack of strength. The main problem why Elbert is willing to accept an ordinary life is that he cannot find a career. The most effective way to become stronger was that during the first 2 days of time travel, he also made various strange shapes in an attempt to find his possible gold finger. The result was naturally a failure. All attempts told him that he had no mutation, no system, and no gold finger. He was just an ordinary person. Therefore, Elbert restrained his disappointment and accepted his fate as an ordinary person with peace of mind. But today the experience awakened his dormant desires again, and his thoughts began to diverge, and he even began to fantasize about the future of killing everyone. Thinking of the excitement, he even jumped up and punched forward excitedly. However, at this moment, Elbert found that the whole world suddenly slowed down. A strange energy began to spread from his heart to his whole body. The red electric current on his arm suddenly flashed. In just a moment, his whole body followed. The fist rushed out and hit a good quality load-bearing wall. Suddenly, cement blocks flew into the air, and even the steel bars inside the wall were blown away. Bah, he waved his hand to scatter the dust on the pavement. Elbert subconsciously spit out the foreign matter in his mouth, but found that there was nothing. After being stunned for 3 seconds, his expression began to be filled with uncontrollable ecstasy. Ha 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 ha, I finally have extraordinary power, the Speed Force, which is the 5th basic power from the DC Universe, the absolute top power. I finally have the qualifications to stand at the top. Elbert doesn't care why the Speed Force of the DC Universe appears in the Marvel Universe and is acquired by him. As long as he does acquire this power, it's enough. He doesn't care if there is some mastermind behind the scenes. He had already accepted his fate as an ordinary person, and now the road to transcendence was right in front of him. How could it be possible for him to give up? Even if there was a conspiracy, Elbert would not hesitate to gamble an unknown fate on a brilliant future. He bet. After the ecstasy, Elbert forced himself to calm down. He couldn't lose his mind just because he obtained the Speed Force. He would have many things to do, but now let's figure out his own state first. The Speed Force was obtained because of its method. Different people obtain it, and the final form of power will be different. Take the most famous, the Flash, Barry Allen, for example. In addition to basic abilities such as super speed, he also gained the ability to travel through time and space, while Wally West, the Flash Kid, can give or steal to others. Speed, and can even use his thoughts to shape the Speed Force into a solid body. For example, the original The Flash J can slow down his own aging and so on. Lying back on the bed, Elbert tried to communicate with the Speed Force. He had to know what kind of ability he had gained. Although no matter what it was, it must be very powerful, but at this time it was like playing a game and gathering tokens. When I was about to shoot 10 rounds, I felt the same way. This kind of unknown is fascinating. As the red electric current flashed on his arm again, Elbert smiled happily. Although there are rumors that the speed of the Speed Force is related to the color, in fact, DC officials have never had a similar setting, so Elbert does not feel troubled by this color, which is rumored to be the slowest. The communication with the Speed Force was so smooth that Elbert himself couldn't believe it. It was like the Speed Force was originally eager to see him. Almost as soon as the red arc enveloped his body, his consciousness sank into a sea of lightning. Ocean, and then he saw a door, a stone door that looked nothing special, with a faint white light shining on it. Elbert controlled his consciousness and approached the stone door. He wanted to touch it but was bounced away by the white light. Unwilling to do so, he tried to mobilize the Speed Force to make contact, but he also failed. With no other option, he could only give up and start observing. Soon he discovered that there was a very small gap in the upper left corner of the complete stone door, about the size of a thumb file. Thanks to the high-speed thinking in the Speed Force, Elbert recognized the gap almost immediately. The shape was exactly the same as the previously broken piece. The stones are exactly the same. So that's it. Does the Speed Force come from this door? What's behind that door? Elbert, who wanted to understand, was even more eager to find out what secrets this door held, but at this moment the ocean of the Speed Force appeared at all. Something happened, an overwhelming crushing sound came, and Elbert's consciousness was directly kicked out of the Speed Force. At night in the incomparably brilliant New York City under various lights, a crimson lightning invisible to the naked eye rushed out. With dazzling brilliance, it drew a long red arc and ran through Times Square in New York. The endless traffic in the lane brought with it a burst of air that blew my hair away, running towards the outside of New York City. Wow, it feels so good. Within the envelope of the red electric arc, Elbert ran as fast as he could without any hindrance. He felt that he had never felt so comfortable in his life, plus his whole life. In the oncoming strong wind, the large and small vehicles on the street were like slow turtles. He faced the storm alone, but even the roaring wind was easily left behind by him. Elbert was a bolt of lightning cuts through all obstacles in the way. I am the fastest man in the world. With unspeakable joy, Elbert stopped in the suburbs of New York. At the moment it was close to midnight, and there was no one here except him, so he could vent his pent-up emotions to his heart's content. Emotionally, when everything settled, Albert found a place to lie down and look at the starry sky, stretching out his hand as if to touch the stars. 200 to 300 times the speed of sound, it's a bit slow. Although there is no precise instrument calculation, Albert can still roughly feel how fast he is. This is due to the extremely fast thinking he obtained in the Speed Force. It is no longer difficult for him to think about problems that only rely on time. At more than 200 times the speed of sound, even if Albert has just obtained the Speed Force, he is enough to take on the title of the fastest in the world. At least on the current Blue Star, nothing can compete with him in speed, but he still thinks that he is slow. Yes, is he slow? Compared with other speedsters, he is indeed not very fast. As the ceiling of speedsters, Wally West's speed has even reached the terrifying 9 trillion times the speed of light. Not to mention that, after he absorbed the speed of everyone on Earth in order to defeat the god of the universe, he surpassed everything in an instant. Speed, this is Albert's role model. However, as a newbie who has just obtained the Speed Force, Albert is pretty good. If you don't have a very specific idea about this speed of more than 200 times the speed of sound, you can refer to the scene of Quicksilver saving people in Apocalypse. At that time, Quicksilver's speed was probably more than 300 times the speed of sound, but now Albert has a speed close to it, which shows how fast he is. But what is my ability? That door seems to have an unusual secret. Albert, who was completely relaxed while lying on the grass, recalled the door he saw in the ocean of the Speed Force. Everything was so clear. Even if he could remember every pattern on the door clearly, it was of no use. After being kicked out by the Speed Force, Albert tried a few more times, but he couldn't get even close. But his connection with the Speed Force told him that as long as he used the Speed Force to push open the door, there would be a huge one. Amounts of harvest. For this reason, Albert must improve his control of the Speed Force and increase his speed to a higher level. This is not only to figure out what is behind the door, but also to prepare a possible back road for himself. In his previous life, Albert didn't know much about the Marvel world, but he had seen the 3 big Avengers Alliance movies. He remembered clearly the scene when Thanos snapped his fingers and wiped out half of all life in the universe. He didn't have a choice before, but now he has. He would naturally give it a try if he had the Speed Force, but if he really couldn't stop Thanos, he would need a way out. If Albert doesn't want to gamble on half the probability of survival, then that door is one of the possibilities. The Speed Force comes from the DC universe, and his Speed Force comes from the fragments of that door. If there is no connection between the two, he wouldn't believe it even to death. Maybe when the time comes, Albert can use that door to go to the DC world and avoid that disaster. In order to achieve this goal, the first thing Albert needs to do is make money. That's right, it's about making money. The speed of money consumption of an extraordinary person and ordinary people is definitely different. Before, Albert thought that his savings were enough, but now it seems that it is too little. Let alone 1 million, it is 100 million. It is estimated that it cannot withstand his consumption. All kinds of professional equipment are worth a lot of money, not to mention the related research that may be conducted in the future. They are all bottomless pits. Without money, it is basically difficult to move forward. Not to mention increasing the speed, just to supplement the calories consumed during normal use, it is a huge sum of money, of food expenses. In this way, Albert had to make changes, at least just being a researcher would definitely not work. He would have to find ways to get more money, make some inventions, or seize the opportunity to make a fortune in the stock market, and then start a company of your own. Or you can do both at the same time. Invention is not an easy task, especially making valuable inventions, but Albert has extremely fast thinking and has more time to understand and analyze than the average person. He only needs to find the right direction, which may not necessarily lead to success. If you can't succeed, you still need to give it a try to know the result. As for the latter, it's easy, just wait. Stark Industry is an opportunity. Tony Stark is still just a playboy. It will probably be a long time before he becomes Iron Man, but Albert knows what will happen, so this is an opportunity. Just one time is enough for him to make money. Earned a lot. Standing up from the grass, Albert stretched out his hand and pointed to the shining stars in the night sky, opened his palm and shook it fiercely. From today on, I, Albert, will become one of you, and I will definitely become the most dazzling one. Quickly, please bear witness to this. The red electric arc flashed, and Albert disappeared under the starry sky. The electric light that only passed by in an instant seemed to leave everything in the world far away. New polymer materials, the gospel of aerospace technology. It can be harder than steel and as soft as polyester, a magical creation. The fired scientist, the genius who will never be buried, he is Albert. You did a good job, but this last one is a little bad. I don't intend to have any conflicts with Stark Industries. Carl, we can't afford to cause this trouble. It's the same for you and me. Albert said a few words. Two newspapers and periodicals are placed on the table. They all belong to America's famous scientific and technological publishing house, and they all describe the same thing in an exaggerated tone, which is a new synthesis material called a parasol. Just like its name, this material has extremely strong thermal insulation and is not easy to burn. While originally having a certain strength, after it continues to increase to a certain thickness, it will have a very perfect buffer zone even if bullets from sniper rifles cannot penetrate it. There is no doubt that this will be a brand new material with considerable uses. Whether it is used in aviation or military, it is very suitable. And this is Albert's result. It has been a few months since he obtained the Speed Force. In order to obtain more funds to support himself, he made many attempts after renting a small laboratory, but the results were not optimistic. He had to admit that it was not that easy to invent a brand new thing. Later, Albert also got some inspiration from the battle suit of the Flash in previous generations, so after a period of research and development testing, the parasol was born. Although it was a little hasty, Albert was completely sure that it had all the advantages described in the newspaper. After all, Albert relies on this thing to make money, so naturally he will not brag too much about the quality, but the descriptions in newspapers are mostly exaggerated. We understand your concerns very well. We will not cause you any trouble, nor do we want to provoke the big tiger of Stark Industrial Group. This is just a small boo, and Stark Industries will not care. Sitting at Albert opposite me, a middle-aged man named Carl explained with a smile on his face. And since you want to sell your patent, is there any more perfect partner than Stark Industries? Stark Industries and genius scientists have settled their differences. Hand in hand, Europe, what a perfect title. I think we will grab a headline again in the future. Carl is a professional who is proficient in creating publicity. Whether an invention patent can make money, in addition to its original function, is more important, of course, its reputation. Only when everyone knows about such a thing will they choose to buy it, which is also the meaning of advertising. Albert didn't know how to operate, but there are many people who know how to get enough benefits, as long as you can afford to pay, so he found Carl, and after paying a large commission, the publicity work began, although it was not there yet. It may not be a household name, but at least a few top-related companies must have received the news, and these are Albert's goals. Ever since the patent application was successfully applied for, Albert has never thought about producing it himself, because the two related industries, aerospace and military industry, are hunting grounds where predators gather. Albert has no foundation and no backing. If he breaks in rashly, he will only be eaten. Wiped clean, unless he wants to make things worse and directly use the Speed Force to solve all problems. Then the problem will be gone, but the consequences are really unpredictable. If he doesn't understand the situation of the door inside the Speed Force, he will leave a way out for himself. Before, Albert didn't want to attract the attention of some supernatural forces. The Speed Force is very strong, but it is by no means omnipotent. The key point is the early development. Therefore, cooperation is the key point. Parasol is his stepping stone to cooperate with large enterprises for development. This is also the path that most independent researchers will choose. This is also one of Albert's goals. He will get an independent laboratory to complete in his own opinion. This may be slower, but it is the safest. The superheroes haven't come together yet, and the world is relatively stable. When everything goes into chaos, he may have a chance to change it, and that's not far away. Stark Industry is very suitable, but it is too powerful. I am afraid of being swallowed up. Regarding Carl's proposal, Albert was non-committal. Stark Industry was not his first choice. The next step is to wait for the invitation to come. I hope not to let it go. I'm disappointed. You can rest assured that according to our publicity, someone will contact you soon. As long as the contract is signed, we will not let the customer's money go in vain. Carl said with strong confidence on his face. They have been in this business since his father, and they have accumulated a very broad network of contacts. They never fail in any task they take on. This is why Albert chose them. Money is not an issue, the question is whether they can achieve their goals. The two chatted for a while and then Carl packed up and left. Albert swept aside the newspapers and periodicals, opened his notebook and began to browse the latest news. Carl said something wrong. He would not receive the news soon. Instead, they had received the news a long time ago. This group of capitalists were like sharks in the deep sea. They got the specific information long before the newspapers were printed, and then they rushed over like sardines to see what was on the mailbox. A series of message prompts shows how enthusiastic they are. The technological level of the Marvel Universe is not low, and is even better than that of Blue Star at the same time. Logically speaking, even if Elbert's new material is indeed valuable, it will not cause such a big commotion, but is it possible? One problem that cannot be ignored is the technology monopoly from the top, especially the leading companies headed by Stark Industries. Ordinary companies have no chance to come into contact with some amazing things, not to mention that Elbert has solved the concept and R&D problems by himself. To obtain the patent, he only needs to set up the production line, which is extremely difficult for most small and medium-sized companies. Friendly, they have no monopoly ambitions. As long as they can obtain authorization, it is enough. Elbert blocks these companies without saying a word. These are not his cup of tea. What really meets his requirements is, as expected, you are here, Hammer Industries, haha. Looking at the signature of one of the emails, Elbert smiled happily. Hammer Industries, like Stark Industries, is a military-industrial enterprise and has close ties with the military. It can also be said that Hammer Industries is one of the spokespersons of the military. Unfortunately, even if it has the support of big bosses behind it, it cannot defeat Stark Industries, the son of destiny. Original's market share has been squeezed very hard. You must know that in the current Stark industry, Tony Stark is still just the smart playboy. The person who really supports the group is his uncle Obadiah Stane, a ruthless old fox. With him under his control, Hammer has not been squeezed out of the military industry. As for the basic industry, even the resources provided by the military to his younger brother are powerful enough. However, no matter how powerful the military is, it is impossible to abandon Stark Industries' more advanced weapons and place a large order for Hammer Industries. Therefore, the situation of Hammer Industries has become increasingly sluggish in the past 2 years, and even if it is not the future, Obadiah was killed by Tony Stark, and the weapons department was shut down to transform into new energy, Hammer Industries might still be lingering on. Today's Hammer Industries makes a living by doing some small businesses that Stark Industries looks down upon, or relying on the help of military bosses to buy and sell some relatively profitable things. Its own scientific research department does have a lot of things that can be taken out separately. It can be considered very good, but the quality of things depends on comparison. No matter how good Hammer is, it cannot surpass Stark Industries. As the controller of Hammer Industries, Justin has great ambitions and is tolerant. Since high-end products cannot be squeezed out, he will start from the low end. At least he has no problem with channels, so although Hammer Industries can get by, it's miserable, but there's no danger of bankruptcy. Justin is quite optimistic about the new materials developed by Elbert. This is an opportunity for him. He admits that heavy industry cannot compete with Stark, but if he can obtain the exclusive license, Hammer Industries will have a breakthrough. No longer can I do some smuggling in secret, but I have a hit product that I can use. How many weapons does the US military use each year? Justin knew clearly in his heart, but he knew more clearly how many protective suits the US military had to eliminate every year. The former could not be compared with the latter. This was not a war period, and the consumption of weapons, especially heavy weapons, was not much. Compared with this alone, soldiers' armor, including but not limited to body armor, bulletproof helmets, etc., is definitely much more expensive. The materials developed by Elbert can not only replace body armor materials, but also play a role in aviation. Stark Industries has not done anything in these two aspects, but compared to the weapons department, it really doesn't care. Justin is still confident that he will give Stark Industries a try. The big bosses in the military behind him support him, and they also want to check and balance Stark Industries. However, the performance of Hammer Industries in recent years has been too embarrassing. Even if the people above him don't say it, Justin himself feels embarrassed, so he is ready this time. Enough benefits in exchange. He believed that compared to Stark Industries, which had previously fired Elbert, Hammer Industries would be a perfect choice. Catherine, has Dr. Elbert responded? Justin held the goblet, shaking the scarlet liquid in it, looking out the window at the busy traffic, and asked the secretary, who opened the office door with a confident look. In his opinion, Elbert has no reason to refuse. His price is the highest and the authority he gives is quite high. No one will refuse his request. However, upon hearing his question, Secretary Catherine looked embarrassed. "I'm very sorry, boss. Dr. Elbert declined our invitation." "What? Why?" Justin's leisurely movements suddenly stopped, and his suddenly clenched palms almost spilled the sloshing red wine. But he didn't care about red wine. Even this glass would cost more than half of an ordinary office worker's money. Month salary compared to red wine, he was still more concerned about why Elbert refused. Did Stark Industries take action? Didn't that old fox Obadiah always look down on this industry? No, boss. Although Stark Industries did send out invitations this time, the specifications were of the lowest quality and they couldn't compete with us at all. Dr. Elbert chose Osborne Company. The secretary saw that Justin's face turned ugly and hurriedly explained, while spreading the documents in his hand in front of Justin. Osborne, is there such a company in the military industry? Suddenly hearing such an unfamiliar name, Justin frowned, but as the secretary handed over the documents, he understood. It turns out to be Norman Osborne. If you're not a biotechnology company, why are you getting involved in this matter? Justin had heard of Osborne Industries and even met its chairman Norman Osborne not long ago. As a military collaborator, the two had little friendship. He only knew that Norman seemed to be cooperating with a general in the military. Is conducting a study on human strength, and there is no reason for him to be related to Elbert. After carefully reading the documents handed over by the secretary, Justin's brows furrowed even more tightly. The conditions offered by Osborne Company were indeed good, but they were still somewhat inferior compared to him. He couldn't figure out why Elbert gave up his offer and chose to cooperate with Norman Osborne. Mr. Justin, do we need to take action? Seeing that Justin's expression gradually softened, Catherine also breathed a sigh of relief and asked cautiously, No need, let's forget it this time. Justin closed the file and finally gave up thinking. Since the matter was a foregone conclusion, it was useless to think about it anymore. The size of Osborne Company is not bad, plus also having a military background, he was unable to put pressure on Norman, which would lead to a series of problems. It's not worth it for Elbert. If you miss the opportunity, you will miss it. If the military is dissatisfied due to internal fighting, it will be really serious. Send a letter to Mr. Norman Osborne for me and ask if he can send the new material to me. Of patent sharing, hello, Mr. Osborne. Hello, Dr. Elbert, I'm glad that you can accept my invitation. You must know that when I decided to invite you, I didn't expect that you would really choose Osborne Industries. After all, whether it is Stark Industries or Hammer Industries, the conditions are no worse than ours, and their main projects are closer to your patents. In the Osborne Collective Building, the chairman's office, Norman met Elbert in person. After the two greeted happily, Norman warmly invited Elbert sat down with a warm smile on his face. You are wrong. The salary of Hammer Industries is indeed very good, but Stark Industries does not look down on my patent. They only offer a very ordinary salary. I don't want to be expelled by them again. After taking the coffee sent by his secretary, Elbert thanked him and said, As for why I chose Osborne Company, it was because of curiosity. Curious. Norman sat up straight, with a somewhat surprised expression on his face, just like when his secretary told him before that Elbert chose to cooperate with Osborne Company. This was indeed unexpected. Yes, Mr. Osborne, you know that as a scientific researcher, we always have a lot of curiosity. Norman agreed very much with Elbert's statement. He is not a guy who just sits in the office and doesn't understand anything. He is originally at the forefront of biological research, one of the top people. Companies including Stark Industries and Hammer Industries, I understand that they choose to invite me, but only you, Osborne, is the only company. Being in the field of biotechnology, this surprised me very much and also made me very curious to understand why you chose to invite me, so I came. This is really unexpected. After hearing Elbert's reasons, Norman didn't know how to answer, but he was still glad that he handed over the invitation letter instead of giving up because he thought it was impossible. The main business of Osborne Company is indeed biotechnology. His research is currently in its infancy, and the military also strongly supports it, so he does not really need Elbert's patent to contribute to Osborne Company's research. But Norman lacks money, very short of money. Even with the military's investment, he persuaded the company's directors to invest a large amount of money. However, as the person in charge of the project, Norman knew very well how huge the cost of continuing the research would be. It was simply a bottomless pit. But Norman couldn't give up, not only for his career, but also to solve the genetic disease in his family. He was not young himself, but he didn't want to see his son Harry also suffer from the genetic disease. So he has to complete the research no matter what, and for this he must ensure sufficient sources of funds. This cannot just rely on investment from others. he must ensure that he has a source of funds of his own. Seeing Elbert's patent coming out, Norman was keenly aware that this was an opportunity. He also had military channels. As long as he got the patent, he would not worry about sales, and through this, his relationship with the military would become even closer. This was an opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. After repeated hesitation, Norman still offered a very generous offer. With the idea of giving it a try, he sent it to Elbert's mailbox. Who would have thought that such an attempt, for which he was not sure of the outcome, would actually succeed? This made Norman feel a little high-spirited. As the saying goes, everything is difficult at the beginning. Now, not long after the research started, he received such good news. Does it also indicate that future research will be smooth sailing? Norman was not a superstitious person, but he was still a little happy when encountering this situation. At the same time, he was even more optimistic about Elbert, the young man who brought him good luck. Dr. Elbert Osborne's main business is indeed biotechnology, but this does not mean that we will not be involved in other fields. And compared to your patents, I look at you more originally. You are still young, very young. This is capital. I believe that as long as I provide you with a suitable environment, you will bring more surprises to me and the whole world. As a qualified capitalist, even if the purpose is to make money with Elbert's patent, Norman he wouldn't say that directly but would encourage him in a bewitching tone. Dr. Elbert, believe me and believe in yourself, your talents don't stop there, and Osborne Industries will provide you with a complete set of conveniences. Really, Mr. Osborne, do you really believe that I can do better? Elbert looked at Norman with excitement, as if he was seeing his only confidant in his life, and then lowered his head unconfidently. But Mr. Osborne, I think my ability may not be enough to meet your expectations. No, Elbert, please allow me to call you this. You have to believe in yourself. You have enough time to learn and try. Failure is just a ladder to growth for you. It is an inevitable path, just like the other Elbert. He failed thousands of times to bring light to mankind. You just lack some confidence. Norman stood up from the sofa, pulled Elbert to the window of the office and pointed at the busy work below. The employee said, I have decided to open a research department specifically for you, a research department led by you. Just go ahead and do it. I believe in you. This is so. Elbert's face flushed with excitement, and even the hand holding Osborne's hand was trembling. I will definitely not disappoint your expectations. I will carry out all aspects of research, all for Osborne. Very good, Elbert. Go and find Mr. Collin. He will explain the new scientific research department to you. You can start forming your own team at any time. Norman sent Elbert out the door with a smile on his face and turned around in an instant. The smile on his face disappeared, replaced by a look of coldness and arrogance. Chairman, do we really have to meet all of Dr. Elbert's requirements? The secretary looked at Norman with some confusion. He had never seen Norman be so optimistic about a young man. Definitely not. Norman shook his head decisively. What he cared about most was only related to his family's scientific research plan, so how could he fully support Elbert's research? You can agree to some less important requests, but as for those that are not suitable, yes, just leave it to me and I will take care of it. Well, old fox, you almost led me into a ditch. Walking out of Norman's office, Elbert rubbed his cheeks vigorously. The flush began to fade and return to his normal skin color. But it's okay for me. My acting skills are also good, so I can rest assured to study and wait for the results. Norman couldn't fully support Elbert's research, and Elbert wouldn't be stupid enough to believe Norman's lies. It was just a lie. He wasn't sure whether Norman would believe what he said, but that didn't matter. Now the purpose has been achieved. The head of the new research department, He has a pretty big name, but I don't know how much power he actually has. But thinking about it, I know that it is impossible to really let him be responsible for everything. Then Norman will really be a fool new, although the materials may make money. The value is not that great. Elbert doesn't care too much about how much power he can gain. This is not the purpose of his coming to Osborne, or his purpose in the beginning was nothing at all. It would be too slow to develop as a department head. The department head is just a springboard. When it comes to capital accumulation, what can be faster than directly swallowing a ready-made large enterprise? Elbert doesn't mind taking a step too far as long as it doesn't involve certain bottom lines. At first, Elbert's target was Hammer Industries, and Justin jumped over as he expected. If it goes according to plan, Elbert will naturally settle in Hammer Industries. Unlike other companies, it seems that Justin is in charge of Hammer Industries, but the real ones who speak effectively are the military bosses behind him. This creates the problem is, as long as he shows enough value, Elbert can bypass Justin and make a deal directly with the military. It is not difficult to even directly replace him. The military only likes Justin because he is useful, but it is just a waste to abandon him. Just one sentence. Just like in the movie, Death Whip was killed by Iron Man and Rhodes for revenge. As his boss, Justin was pushed out by the military and gave up as soon as he said it, without any hesitation. However, just when Elbert was about to act according to the plan, another invitation letter appeared, that is, Osborne Industries, which made him quickly change his mind. Because plans can never keep up with changes, and he did not know the specific situation of Hammer Industries. It is easy for some changes to occur, resulting in things not developing as he expected. Compared with Osborne Industries, it is a little different. At least Elbert knows that Norman Osborn may be the first big villain Spider-Man faces, the Green Goblin, and the genetic disease in Norman Osborn's family, which gives him room for manipulation. And unlike Hammer Industries, which is almost completely controlled by the military, Osborne Industries originally only cooperates with the military and still maintains a certain degree of independence. Elbert only needs to get the shareholders of Osborne Industries, and Elbert can take them under his wing. As for how to deal with those annoying directors, Norman will solve this problem for him. While Elbert was communicating with Norman Stark Industries, Obadiah was sorting out the company's recent profitability. Although he was a villain, he did his best for Stark Industries. There are two documents on the table. The one on the left is normal profit, which is a legitimate income that can be checked 3 times without any problems. The one on the right is naturally something that cannot be seen by outsiders. The privacy even includes some of Obadiah's own private transactions. Quite good performance. You are indeed a commendable assistant, Daniel. Obadiah had a satisfied smile on his face, and it was obvious that the numbers on the report satisfied him. As Stark Industries gradually grew, he would not personally intervene in everything. He would hand over some minor issues to his assistants to handle. Obadiah's assistants have changed several times over the years, some because he was not satisfied with the other person's work efficiency, some because he was too curious, and there was also an old buddy John who had been with him for 3 years. Thinking of him, Obadiah couldn't help but feel a little nostalgic. He was a very good person who could figure out his thoughts. Unfortunately, he knew too much, which forced Obadiah to send him to see God in advance. This is what I should do. You have given me your trust, so I will naturally do what you asked me to do. Although Daniel has only been with Obadiah for less than half a year, he is already familiar with this boss's character. So in the face of Obadiah's praise, Daniel only responded humbly. That's great, this reminds me of old John again. Obadiah was very satisfied with Daniel's attitude, but some issues still had to be clarified. He took out one document from the document. What was different from the others was that this one there is an F printed on the document, which means that this is a failed contract, and it is also the only failed contract among all the documents. This is the only stain on you. I am not a person who cannot tolerate failure, but you can't. It would be too ugly to have an ink spot stained on a piece of white paper, and I hope this won't happen again in the future. Yes, Mr. Obadiah, I will correct this mistake. Daniel lowered his head nervously and took the contract from Obadiah's hand. There was a photo on it, exactly what Elbert looked like. Obviously, Elbert's refusal earned the good assistant a bit of criticism. This also made him hold a grudge against the young man in the photo, and he was going to wait to communicate with his business partners and tell this young man who didn't know the heights of the world. Not only could he make a fortune with a little ability, but he was the one who was against Stark Industries. The biggest mistake of my life. No, Daniel, I don't want to attract any attention recently. Dr. Elbert is just looking for his own way. What do you want to do, threat or inducement? We are serious businessmen and this is free America. You have no right to change a person's opinion. Do you understand? As if he heard the indignation in Daniel's tone, Obadiah's expression became serious and he warned seriously. Yes, Mr. Obadi, I understand. Obadi's expression reminded Daniel of something bad. A few months ago, he also suddenly changed his face like this and then killed his former assistant in front of him. Mr. John, he was very scared at the time. Even though Obadiah didn't make things difficult for him at the time, Daniel still didn't sleep all night. The next day, he went to work in the company in a daze, only to be informed that he had become the new assistant. This not only did not make him happy, but even made him even more unhappy. Fear. Daniel had always had an arrogant attitude in front of others. But in front of Obadiah, even a single expression or movement was enough to scare him, so he honestly chose to obey Obadiah's instructions and would never provoke him. Any trouble, for which he even stopped trading with some partners. But little did he know that this behavior made Obadiah even more dissatisfied with him. He liked a dog that could do good things, but he would not keep a timid dog that couldn't do good things. I still miss old John a little bit. Seeing Daniel hunched out of the office, Obadiah muttered as if he was nostalgic. Then he cut off all communication signals between the office and the outside world and walked into the independent room at the side door. Bathroom. After confirming that no one would disturb him at this time, Obadiah groped in front of the bathroom mirror. He soon found a bulge on the edge of the mirror. This was a rather hidden point. It was covered with multiple layers of the mirror. The reflection is hidden. As long as it is not in direct contact, no matter what angle you look at, you will see a smooth mirror surface. Obadiah's thumb stayed on the protrusion for about 3 seconds, and the entire mirror began to fold from the center. Soon a screen with a file size extended from the back. Obadiah entered a few words on the screen. The screen flashed twice, and a bald head with a fierce expression appeared on the screen. I have arranged it according to what you said. As long as there is no problem with your intelligence, I will be able to eliminate the target soon. The bald head said hoarsely, forcing out a smile, opening a distance from the camera and putting his gun behind him. Armed thugs were shown to Obadiah. Very good. I will give you the exact route in 2 days. As long as you can do it, I can add 20% to the previous price. Obadiah nodded with satisfaction, but there was still an imperceptible disdain in his eyes. If it weren't for it is not convenient for him to let his own people take action, so there is no need for such a little b*********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** more than the previous price. This is a big deal, and I have to pay huge amounts of money for it. You can't let me lose. Obadiah thought that the price was enough to satisfy anyone, but he still underestimated the appetite of a warlord who survived in the imperial cemetery. After hearing Obadiah's quotation, the bald man was not only unsatisfied, but even added it to a much larger number. We have made an agreement before. You can't go back on your word now. You must know that the weapons you rely on to survive until now were purchased from me. Don't cut off your escape. Obadiah's face suddenly changed. It was ugly, but he suppressed his anger and said through gritted teeth, "Don't cut off your retreat, I know your purpose. As long as you get the entire Stark industry, isn't my little money just a waste of money? Believe me, you are worth the money." The bald man said to Obadiah he ignored the anger. He was sure that Obadiah would never give up this opportunity, and in the neighborhood, no one except him could do this kind of business. This was a seller's market. Whatever conditions he had, Obadiah had to take over. Okay. But I won't pay until I see Stark's body first. Obadiah's expression changed several times, and finally he agreed to the bald head's conditions. Seeing this, the bald head laughed and closed the communication, leaving Obadiah alone. He stood there with a livid face, seeking death. Reverting the screen to a mirror, Obadiah laughed disdainfully. He had never been prepared to pay. Baldhead's blackmail behavior could only make Obadiah decide to make his death a little more miserable. It is indeed difficult for his people to take action to solve the Tony Stark matter, but to get rid of the thugs who killed Tony Stark, it is perfect for him to take action. It will cut off the evidence and also be a good opportunity to win people's hearts. When the time comes, taking over Stark Industries is also much easier. Thinking of Tony, Obadiah's face looked a little regretful. Like his father, Tony was a genius. Obadiah had to admit that his management only accounted for a small part of Stark Industries' success today. The weapons invented by Stark is the real key. Sometimes Obadiah wants to dig out Tony's brain to see how he is different from ordinary people. There was once a design problem. He asked nearly half of the staff in the research department to work overtime and calculate for a month, but failed to solve the problem. As a result, Tony only spent an hour. Not only did he solve the problem, but he also made improvements to the original design. After optimization, Stark Industries made a lot of money after that product was launched. With such an obvious gap, Obadiah really couldn't bear to kill Tony, but he tried. Tony is a B******D, even more B******D than his dead father Howard. He is simply incompetent. Apart from letting him disappear, Obadiah can't think of any other way to obtain Stark Industries. So after knowing that Stark was going to test-fire a new missile at the Imperial Cemetery, Obadiah planned the plan. In America, he couldn't touch Tony, but outside of America, it was still an extremely chaotic place like the Empire Cemetery. It was difficult for Obadiah not to be tempted. Just wait a few more days and Stark Industry will belong to me. It should have been mine a long time ago. Osborne Industries obtained Elbert's patent authorization. Norman spent some time confirming the properties of the material and began to ask the designer to come up with several feasible samples. In the past 2 days, Norman would basically go there in addition to being in his own laboratory. Looking at the test results of the finished product, everything is perfect. After watching the demonstration, the military people also expressed that they would buy in large quantities. Everything seems to be on the right track, heading towards the successful end. What has Dr. Elbert been doing recently? Norman, who was busy, finished processing the backlog of documents and then remembered Elbert, who he had left aside. He hadn't paid much attention to it in the past 2 days, hoping that nothing would go wrong. Yesterday, Mr. Collins submitted a copy of the funding and related materials applied for by Dr. Elbert. I checked it and found that they were all relatively common things, so I approved it. The secretary pulled out a copy from the pile of documents and handed it to Norman. Because Norman has been in the laboratory for a long time, the secretary has a lot of power. She has the right to make decisions as long as it does not involve fundamental issues. Well, you did a good job. Keep Dr. Elbert steady first. When this period of time is over, I will personally arrange his work. After scanning the numbers on the document, Norman nodded secretly. This Elbert is quite sensible. He didn't cause the lion to open his mouth, otherwise he might have to use some extraordinary measures and everyone might not look good by then. I understand, Chairman. Is there anything else that needs to be dealt with? The secretary knew clearly, and she had a good idea of how she should treat Elbert in the future. It's okay, you can go do your own thing. Norman waved his hand to signal the secretary to handle his own matter, but halfway through raising his hand, a sudden sharp pain forced him to take his hand back and draw a slightly. His tired face was twisted in pain. Chairman, are you okay? Do you want me to call the doctor? The secretary was about to open the door and go out. When he saw Norman's condition, he hurried back and asked worriedly, No need, this is an old problem, I just need to relax myself. Go out and don't let anyone come in and disturb me. Covering his right arm, Norman slumped on the armchair and endured the pain to ask the secretary to go out. Please pay attention to your health. Seeing this, the secretary didn't say much and walked out honestly. She was able to gain Norman's trust precisely because she never hesitated to listen to Norman's words, even now. There was obviously something wrong with man's condition, and she did not choose to stay against Norman's wishes or call a doctor. After the secretary left, Norman couldn't help but scream in pain. He opened the sleeve of his right arm and saw what should have been a normal skin color. At the moment, he found green spots. There was a posture of being connected together, and what was more serious was inside his arms. Norman felt that there might be something wrong with his bones, and he didn't dare to move his arms easily. After enduring this for almost a quarter of an hour, Norman's face softened, but the green spots on his arms seemed to be denser, which made his face, which was pale due to pain, instantly turn livid. What's going on? It's only been 2 months since the last checkup. It's impossible for the attack to happen so soon. It seems I have to go for a review. Norman put down his sleeves. The disease inherited in the family is like a curse. It cannot be treated by any known means. Once the onset of the disease begins, it means that the countdown to life has begun, and this process will be quite painful until it is completely asleep in despair. It's just that Norman is a little confused. According to the results of the last inspection, there shouldn't be any problems in the past year. That's why he chose to cooperate with the military at this time. He just wanted to take advantage of his good condition to successfully develop it as soon as possible. The body's strengthening formula is used to solve this curse, but after 2 months it came back like a ghost. The test results would not be wrong. Norman still had this confidence. This can only mean that the disease has changed in the body in the past 2 months. And it will most likely kill him. We have to speed up. Norman thought for a while but picked up the phone. He didn't have time to wait slowly and he had to speed up the process of everything. In the persuasive voice on the other side of the phone, Norman insisted that all experiments on new materials must be completed tomorrow, and the finished products should be launched within a week and mass production begin. Norman then called several people in charge of the laboratory, all urging them to take action. This may lead to a series of problems, but Norman can't control that much. As long as the funds are in place, he will do his best to research the strengthening potion. Even Osborne Industries is secondary in comparison. In the new laboratory of Osborne Industries, Elbert assigned several material analysis tasks to the researchers below and walked into his independent office. During this period, he was indeed quite honest because he did not need to be high profile and things were going towards him. Going in the expected direction, Norman is about to get sick. Albert turned on the TV on one side, turned the sound to the highest level, and looked in the direction of Norman's office through the wall. It seemed that he could see Norman gritting his teeth and enduring. According to the original development, Norman's genetic disease may last for several years. It won't enter its late stages until next year, so Albert injected some changes into him. The Speed Force does not only affect the movement of the human body, it can also affect cells in more detail. Most of the speedsters who obtain the Speed Force will not only change their speed, but also the self-healing cells in their bodies will also be accelerated. This makes they can recover quickly after being injured, and some speedsters can even use the Speed Force to affect other people's self-healing cells, thereby achieving the purpose of healing others. It just depends on the connection with the Speed Force. This ability may or may not cause the target to lose health. Albert didn't care whether the vitality was lost or not. What he cared about was, besides the self-healing cells, could the Speed Force act on other parts? The answer is yes, at least Albert can do it. He doesn't know if other speedsters can also do it, or is this one of his own uniqueness. As early as when he shook hands with Norman, Albert controlled the Speed Force, quietly entered Norman's body, and accurately acted on his family's genetic genes. This change will make Norman's disease, which originally took several years to completely break out, come to an end in the next few months, and even if Norman checks carefully, he will not find other problems. In this process, the Speed Force that Albert sent into his body has long since disappeared. In the past few months, Albert has not given up on exploring the changes brought about by the Speed Force. Super speed is the most basic and core thing, but other abilities cannot be underestimated, such as crossing physical obstacles, which is quite practical. This means that even if he is trapped by someone's design, Albert can escape safely. To travel through entities requires considerable control. Speedsters must completely control the kinetic energy of their own molecules at the molecular level. When they need to enter or pass through a solid object, they only need to match the vibration frequency of their own molecules to that of the object. This can be achieved by keeping the vibration frequency of the molecules the same. The second generation, the Flash Barry Allen, can do this, but the third generation, the Flash Wally West's control ability is slightly worse. So when solid objects come into contact with Wally, the objects tend to explode, and the fourth generation of the Flash, Bart Allen, is even worse. He will directly melt the objects he touches, although this is another way to penetrate obstacles. Albert's control over this ability is not particularly good. This can be seen from the fact that when he first obtained the Speed Force, he directly knocked down a load-bearing wall of his house. In later attempts, Albert's performance was similar to Wally's, but it was more destructive. The object did not explode, but during the disturbance of the Speed Force, the molecular structure was disrupted and directly disintegrated. Albert was not satisfied with this, but he really tried to transform this ability from being able to only act on objects to being able to act on living organisms. The Speed Force gave Albert enough speed to deal with most situations, but in terms of attacks alone, it's not particularly outstanding. But there is something in the Marvel Universe that is extremely resistant to pure physical damage, and that is vibranium adamantium. If vibranium is used to build an armor, Albert is not sure how fast he has to accelerate to accumulate the energy to break vibranium's defense, so other countermeasures are necessary. During a long period of research, Albert discovered that his Speed Force, just like the red color it appears on the outside, is quite aggressive, and its derived ability is closer to destruction rather than construction or recovery. Even if Albert concentrates his energy enough, he can make the Speed Force behave like a real electric current, destroying everything around him crazily, and this damage is irreversible. Albert even doubts that he will be affected by this destructive speed. After being damaged by force, even if you use Time Gem, you may not be able to recover. Albert has roughly confirmed that the form of his own Speed Force is a gun, an indestructible and indestructible gun. Anything that stands in front of him will be destroyed. Tony Stark, dreamer, genius, patriot. He created a new pattern in the weapons industry and defended the freedom of the United States and the country's interests around the world. He is a true patriot. Tomorrow in Las Vegas, Colonel Rhodes will present the highest honor award of the year to Tony Stark. Interested viewers, please pay attention to this station on time tomorrow. We will broadcast the entire event. Just when Albert was lost in thought, a report appeared on TV that pulled him back. Although the news had passed, Tony Stark's photo was still hanging on the lower right side of the screen, with a line of the year's highest honor award attached. The golden words "winner" cannot be ignored even if you want to. The awards ceremony in Las Vegas. Has it come to this so soon? Fortunately, Norman has paid part of the patent fees, otherwise I would have missed it for nothing. Albert's mind worked quickly, and he quickly came to the conclusion. The conclusion is that in more than 60 hours in the future, this patriot will disappear, and soon after that, Iron Man will be born. Albert didn't care much about Stark Industries' internal struggles, but he had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. This was the fulcrum of change, and the patent fees paid by Norman were Albert's crowbar to move the stock market. With enough funds, Albert can speed up the annexation of Osborn Company. Iron Man is about to be born, and other Superman types will also be born one after another. The era of Great War will begin, and everyone has reached the moment of fighting for their lives. Is it a blockbuster, or is it? Being penniless, it depends on whether he can adapt to this era. Speaking of which, if I annexed Osborn Industries and then directly destroyed all the original experiments, would Spider-Man still be born? Albert thought thoughtfully. He had no intention of getting involved in the birth of Iron Man. He just made money behind the scenes. Well, because he has not fully adapted to this world, and if he intervenes directly when OA may exist, some unexpected situations may occur. But it's different for other heroes such as Spider-Man. Albert can eliminate the root cause of Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man, so what will be the result? Will Peter Parker be a normal person from now on, or will another spider bite him and turn him into Spider-Man? This is a feasible experimental question. Albert feels it is necessary to test whether the world will respond to his influence. Albert has no interest in going against those superheroes, but when interests are fixed, no one can guarantee that there will be no conflict. You want cake and I want cake too. What should I do if I can't convince the other party? It's definitely a F***G fight. Whoever wins the fight will still be reasonable with you. The superhero can basically be regarded as the biological son of the Marvel Universe. Once there is a conflict, it will inevitably cause some turmoil. Albert has to determine the file size of this turmoil through testing. If it is not too serious, then he can let go a little bit. But if it's a Dimension Lord of Dormammu's level who can directly block the door, Albert still thinks there's nothing wrong with keeping a low profile. We can try the Iron Man thing. Well, then I have to take 2 days off. In addition to heroes like Iron Man, maybe the villain can also try it. Albert smiled and he was surprised by what Norman did. It was not a kind of temptation, but it was not shown openly. He just pushed it secretly. The Osborn family's genetic disease will attack sooner or later. Albert only speeds up the process, rather than directly going against the trend. And compared to superheroes, most villains seem to be unpopular. Even if they may have an impact, the consequences will be much smaller. As for whether there will be any problems if Spider-Man lacks an opponent like Green Goblin, definitely not. Since Spider-Man can be born in this situation, villains will naturally be born to replace Green Goblin. This world revolves around the heroes, not the villains. Thinking of this, Albert got up and turned off the TV and was about to leave Osborn Industries directly. Norman did not arrange any research projects for him, and although it was a new research department, the number of researchers under Albert was pitiful. In the initial stage, except for simple analysis work, the conditions were not even better than the temporary laboratory Albert rented before, except that it did not cost money. "Dr. Albert, I'm about to go find you." As soon as Albert walked out of the office, he saw Deputy Director Colin walking over with a folder. He was arranged by Norman in the name of his assistant, but in fact he was naturally here as a constraint. Restricting Albert, so even if Colin had a smile on his face, Albert always felt that he was looking at himself with suspicion and an arrogant attitude. This is not because of Albert's persecution hallucination, but the reality he saw from the perspective of the Speed Force. Some speedsters' thoughts will also accelerate due to the Speed Force. This is by no means a pleasant experience. Sometimes it can be useful, but spending months or even years listening to someone say a word is not something worth trying. Therefore, most speedsters will slow down their thinking when it is not necessary. The same is true for Albert, but sometimes he will also use this speedy thinking to observe the people around him. From this perspective, no secret can be hidden. Unless that person can deceive himself first and truly reach the state of being no different from ordinary people. "What's the matter, Colin? I'm just about to go back and deal with some personal issues." Albert doesn't mind if someone restrains him. If he were Norman, he would behave the same way. This is definitely, but he hates Colin, attitude, so there is not much emotion in the tone. The chairman has a document for you to sign." It was this familiar tone again which made Colin's expression slightly distorted. He hated Albert's indifferent tone, which made him feel like he was being ignored. Disdained. How dare he talk to me like this? He's just a puppet. As long as I say a few words in front of the chairman, he has to pack up his things. Asterisk hole, does he really think he is an indispensable genius scientist? Just wait for me. Oh, give it to me. The change in Colin's expression was clearly seen in Albert's eyes. Ever since he spoke in a similar tone for the first time, he had noticed that Colin would be particularly angry. Seeing this, I would tease him like this every time, and it still felt interesting after a long time. Colin tried his best to hide the change in his expression. When Albert looked down at the document, he turned his face and took a deep breath before putting on his false smile again. This is the quality certification license for the new type of armor. I remember that according to the testing progress, I should confirm it after 3 days. Is it so soon? The document is not a big deal. It roughly means that the materials he authorized have been produced. A qualified product was produced, and Albert, as the inventor, said that this is indeed a pretty good method of use. Osborne Industries has done a very good job, etc., and it is just to prepare for advertising. The security test has been completed. Don't you need me to take a look? From this document, Albert could already see Norman's urgency. This was too fast, not to mention completing all the tests, half of them would be good. Why he was so eager to sign it and put it into production, it shows that the Speed Force has indeed had the desired effect, which is exactly what Albert wants to see. The chairman means no, doctor, don't you believe in the ability of Osborne Industries? Colin asked with a sincere look, but in his heart he was madly hoping that Albert would say yes. Only if he said so, he would have it. Why go to the chairman to file a complaint against him and let him know how powerful he is? Oh, okay, what's the other one? Albert looked at Colin's micro-expression in a funny way and decisively signed his name. He knew the quality of the new product and it didn't matter when he signed. He didn't need to say more on this issue, he just asked lightly about the content of the following document. Cowardless coward, Colin, who failed to make the abacus, cursed Albert in his mind. He didn't even say a word in retort, which was a disgrace to the scientific researchers. However, he could only say with a smile on his face, the chairman is going to doctor, your patent is shared with Mr. Justin from Hammer Industries, and this is the share that doctor should get. Well, what a surprise, thank you. Seeing the amount on the document, Albert made a surprised expression. In the licensing contract for Osborne Industries, Albert also gave Norman the right to freely share the patent with others, but stipulated that there is a lower limit on the price, and every time he shares, he deserves a part of the dividend. Generally speaking, this kind of patent monopoly will be shared with others after the market has spread and entered a saturation period, but Norman knows that he does not have the ability to occupy enough markets in a short time. After all, he is not in the military industry. Therefore, in order to collect funds as soon as possible and go all out for research, we can only reluctantly give up long-term interests and prepare funds that can be obtained in the short term from Hammer Industries, which took the initiative to raise money. This is also a good thing for Albert. The more money he has, the more capital he can leverage. How he will act next depends on the results of the test. I hope he will not deviate too much from his ideas, otherwise everything will be in trouble in the future. It is absolutely difficult to suffer from liver pain if you have to tie your hands and feet. The next day at the Caesars Palace Hotel in Las Vegas, Rhodes, with a black face and almost a black aura, waved his hands to drive away the waiter who was coming to entertain him, and went straight to a gaming table filled with spectators. He had reason to be angry. Such an important award ceremony, Tony actually failed to make an appointment. If Obadiah hadn't come to the rescue, he wouldn't have known how he would have stepped down. This is simply too much. When he sees Tony, he must teach him a lesson at least. At least make that be ****D apologize to himself and promise never to do anything like this again. Rhodes was holding the trophy that should belong to Tony Stark. Before anyone could squeeze in, he heard Tony Stark shouting, "I'm going to win, come on." This undoubtedly made Rhodes happy because of his fantasy. Many people's faces became even darker and they pushed aside the crowd and squeezed in. We should play all night long. After Tony Stark rolled the dice, he didn't care about the result. He just smiled and placed his hands on the waist of a beautiful woman next to him, completely unaware of Rhodes, who was exuding strong low pressure behind him. You are really unreasonable. Tonight you should. Rhodes forced his way between the two of them and was about to scold Tony to let him know how much he had done. But unfortunately, in front of this romantic man, Rhodes what to said made no sense at all. Oh, this is unbelievable. Do they insist on you coming to present the award to me? Tony said, pretending to be surprised, his hands not forgetting to wrap around Rhodes' burly figure and move slowly over the beautiful woman's body. No, no one forced me, but they told me that you would be deeply honored if I came to present you with an award. Rhodes nodded slightly and unconsciously followed Tony's question, completely forgetting about it. You need to teach him a lesson before you kill him. Definitely, I'm definitely honored because it's you who is giving me the award. Tony looked at Rhodes's face, getting closer and closer. He really wasn't in the mood to continue flirting with the beauty, so he could only let go of his hands holding the beauty and said, "What? When will you give me the award? Here, I'll give it to you directly." After speaking, Rhodes directly raised his hand and handed Tony the crystal trophy that should be accepted on a more grand occasion. Here it is, this will save you a lot of trouble. Oh, I'm sorry. Tony shrugged his shoulders. Obviously, he didn't expect Rhodes to be so straightforward and bring the trophy here, so he could only accept the trophy and apologize. It's okay. Rhodes obviously didn't hear Tony's perfunctory apology. He shook his head slightly and was about to say something but was interrupted by Tony's next action. Please help me take a look. This is really special. I really don't have this thing at home. Tony smiled and handed the trophy to the beautiful woman before, continued to bend down, pushed the chips on the table up, and then picked up the 2 dice. Come on, let them give me some luck. Help me, blow. Holding the dice in his fist, Tony straightened up, then extended his fist to the mouth of the beautiful woman holding the trophy and said with a smile, waiting for the beautiful woman to wink and finish blowing. Tony put his fist in front of Rhodes' mouth again. You want some too? I never blow air into a man's dice. Rhodes felt that he had been tricked, so naturally he looked at Tony angrily and said with great dissatisfaction, "Oh, come on, honey." It was as if Tony couldn't see Rhodes' dissatisfaction. He insisted on handing the dice to Rhodes' mouth, but before he finished speaking, Rhodes was a little angry with the dice in his hand. The shot fell down. That's it, the dice thrown by the army colonel. Tony didn't care about this. When he saw the dice falling on the gaming table, he immediately shouted to the audience. However, when the dice came to a stop, his expression dropped and he turned out to be quite shameless. Throw it away in vain, this is the point. It's not too bad. Seeing this result, Rhodes could only shrug. Do you still want to continue playing? Oh, okay, gentlemen and ladies, I wish you a good time. Looking at Rod's face, Tony knew that there was no more fun to play next. So he turned around, raised his hands, and said loudly, then he picked up 2 large denomination chips from the table, stuffed them into the chests of the 2 girls standing aside, then took the trophy and left the gaming table with Rhodes. Tony, I'm leaving first. After successfully pulling Tony away, Rhodes glanced at his watch and said he was leaving. However, he felt that there was something he needed to remind Tony, don't be late tomorrow. Yes. The insincere perfunctory made Rhodes quite helpless. However, this was not the first time he saw Tony, so he had to leave first. Otherwise, he didn't know whether Tony would be late, but he might be in trouble due to lack of sleep. Be late. Hey, what is Caesar's belongs to Caesar, come and take it, Caesar. After sending away the nagging Rhodes, Tony saw 3 actors on the side, one of whom played the role of Caesar, and Tony handed over the trophy directly, and then walked out of the hotel door directly, leaving the actor with a confused look on his face. The moment Tony stepped out of the door, the whole world stopped, and a red lightning flashed through the crowd and appeared in front of him. Tony Stark, Iron Man, first meeting, have a nice journey. The next second, the world returned to normal. Tony subconsciously turned his head and looked in one direction. He didn't know if it was an illusion. He seemed to see a red shadow, but he wasn't sure. When he concentrated on looking for it, he couldn't find anything anymore. Tony, who thought he was dazzled, walked to his car surrounded by bodyguards, opened the door and was about to get in, when suddenly a female voice came from behind him. "Mr. Stark, please wait a moment." Stark paused and did not look directly at the direction of the sound. Instead, he turned his head slightly and looked at the bodyguard beside him. After following Tony Stark for so many years, the bodyguard naturally knew what his boss wanted to ask, and replied without hesitation, "He has a good figure. On point." After hearing the satisfactory answer, Tony immediately put on a smile on his face and turned towards the beauty. It seemed that there was a big battle waiting for him tonight. Oh, it only took 68 seconds to turn back and forth, which is not bad. Albert pressed the pause button on the timer at his residence in Manhattan, New York, looked at the time displayed on it, and nodded happily. The distance from New York to Las Vegas is close to 4,000 kilometers. A direct flight usually takes more than 5 hours and a round trip takes 10 hours. However, Albert only took a little more than a minute. During this time, his speed was even faster. There is some improvement, and even without special training, the speed will naturally increase. This is a good signal, but also a not-so-good signal. The closer the connection with the speed force is, the faster the speedster will be, but if the connection is too close, it will form a tug-of-war. Once the speed force is crossed, if that line is crossed, Elbert may be completely pulled into the speed force during a certain run. Just like Wally West, the third generation of the Flash was imprisoned by the speed force. It's just that Wally has his girlfriend Linda as a basis of faith. Even if he is pulled into the speed force, he can still pursue his lover and return to the real world. Elbert doesn't have a lover. He has been a purebred single in his previous life. This method is suitable for him. It doesn't work for him, but even if the speed keeps increasing, it is still far away from the speed of light. By the time it reaches the speed where it may be pulled into the speed force, who knows how long it will be. While watching the award ceremony, Elbert suddenly had the idea to meet Tony Stark in advance to see what the future superhero looked like before he became a hero. And at the same time, he also tested his long-distance running status. In the end, Tony Stark saw it, and he didn't feel good about it. Now Tony is a arrogant B*** D who doesn't care about anything except his own happiness. At that time, Elbert almost punched him in the face, but thinking that in that state, Tony might turn into meat paste with one punch, he stopped thinking about it. Oh, it would have been great to just hit it right then. Thinking of Tony Stark's face, Elbert's eyes had an abnormal red light, imagining the feeling of a punch hitting it, and even subconsciously swung a punch. Zizzy, at the moment when the punch hit, the calm speed force jumped violently, and a red arc flashed around the arm. Know what happened just now. Even if I see Tony Stark unhappy, I won't have the intention to kill him at this time. The sudden reaction of the speed force made Elbert suddenly wake up as if he was coming back to his senses, and then he felt an obvious sense of disgust. It rose from the bottom of his heart, but this disgust was not his, it belonged to the speed force. It's the speed force. The speed force hates Tony Stark and even wants to kill him. Why? Although the speed force has no personality, it is not a completely unconscious dead thing. It is theoretically not unreasonable for it to produce emotions. It's possible, but why the speed force would have murderous intent on Tony Stark is something Elbert couldn't figure out. And the most important thing is that Elbert left Las Vegas directly and only felt the obvious murderous intention after returning to New York. If the speed force really wanted to kill Tony Stark, the moment Elbert saw him, he was already dead. In that case, if the speed force suddenly went berserk, not even Elbert could save Tony Stark, but nothing happened. The speed force doesn't really want to kill Tony Stark. Elbert made a certain guess, but considering that the clear feeling of disgust does not seem to be fake, and the speed force has no personality, it is just a subconscious, and it is impossible to express it. It was such a difficult act to cheat, so Elbert quickly determined another possibility. There is something suppressing the speed force. This suppression only ended after I left Tony Stark far enough, so I felt to this belated murderous intention. This is one of the most likely scenarios, but what can suppress the speed force? Elbert took a breath when he thought of this, feeling a little chilled all over his body. It seems that there is really no free lunch in this world. There is no love without reason, and there is no hatred without reason. Elbert tried his best to avoid thinking about the source of the speed force and why he chose himself. He was afraid that if he figured it out, he would lose it and become an ordinary person again. Elbert really couldn't accept that he had such extraordinary power and then allowed him to be an ordinary office worker. Now Elbert still doesn't know the answer to the question, but the price of gaining power has been laid before him. The speed force wants to kill Tony Stark, and maybe it has more than just Tony Stark as its target. How should it execute its idea? Naturally, it was Elbert, the chosen one, who performed it. To kill or not, this is a big problem. If it were a normal Tony Stark, even if he became Iron Man, Elbert would not hesitate and choose to follow the will of the speed force. But if there is something inside or around Tony Stark, the existence of the speed force is enough to suppress it, so even if he has the intention, he doesn't have the power. Lying on the bed a little irritably, Elbert tried to communicate with the speed force. Maybe Tony Stark was no longer around, and the emotion of the speed force came and went quickly. After a while, it returned to normal. Elbert followed the familiar feeling and regained consciousness. Once he came to the ocean of speed force. He looked at the familiar stone door not far away, and he was stunned for the next moment. He didn't know when it started, but the white light that had been shrouded before had disappeared, and now there was no obstacle between the stone door and Elbert. Is it because of Tony Stark? Elbert guessed with a trembling consciousness and then approached the stone door without any hesitation. Now that he was tied to the speed force, if he wanted to solve the dilemma, he could only take a closer look at it. Maybe this door could tell him something he didn't know. In front of the stone door, Albert's consciousness extended with the help of the speed force and touched the door with complex patterns. Albert thought it might be a painting, no, not just one painting, but many paintings stacked together. The lines are mixed together, making it impossible to see the content of any one picture at all. Wait, this is the symbol of the speed force. Fumbling along the lines on the stone door, Albert returned to the one he saw at the beginning with a small piece missing. This time there was no white light to block it, and he was in a mess. Among the lines, he found a lightning-like symbol, which made him easily think that maybe it was this gap representing the speed force that gave him strength. Since the speed force logo occupies a corner, does that mean there are other similar logos? Unlike the interlacing of lines, the special mark was obviously deeper and difficult to be completely covered. Albert observed more carefully and finally made a new discovery at another location. It was a circle, with several signs forming a circle, and inside the circle there were also two vague signs. Albert couldn't identify what all the signs looked like, but he could determine that there were 9 in total, and one was particularly clear. That is the simplest one, consisting of only a few strokes, 2 horizontal lines up and down, and a circle in the middle. Albert recognized this logo. It belonged to the Green Lantern Corps. Then this entire pattern represents the 9 Lantern Corps. The power of colored light is also one of the strongest energies in the DC universe. This is an omega-shaped Darkseid's omega ray. Then the mass below is the anti-life equation. Wait a minute, I didn't pay attention at first. Here are Superman's logo, Batman, and it should be Wonder Woman's logo. These are the vital core of the DC universe. After careful inspection, Albert found some more vaguely identifiable symbols. Some he recognized, and some he didn't understand what they meant, but these all came from the same world, parallel to the Marvel multi-universe, DC multi-universe, the birthplace of the Speed Force. In other words, behind this door is the DC universe. Albert's previous conjecture seems to be correct. If he really endures some kind of irresistible crisis, this door may be his hope of escape. But how do I open it? He finally figured it out, but Albert still had no idea what to do to open the door, and there was also a pulling feeling in the Speed Force. This was a sign that he was about to be kicked out of the Speed Force. Albert thought for a while. He used all his strength to control all the speed forces around him that could be controlled by him, and stabbed the stone door fiercely like a desperate move. Boom. As if someone had hit his head with a hammer, Albert got up from the bed in a daze. He felt some liquid flowing out of his nose and ears. When he stretched out his hand, it was full of blood. It seemed that his attempt to commit suicide was so successful that he almost actually died. After resting on the bedside for half an hour, Albert felt that the dizziness subsided and the world became clear before his eyes. He quickly went to the bathroom to find a spare medical kit and wiped the blood on his face. Fortunately, he had the speed power to speed up the healing, so the amount of bleeding was not large. Otherwise, he would have been the first speedster to die from blood loss. Although it's almost finished, it's not completely useless. At least I know how to open the door and why the Speed Force wants to kill Tony Stark. After finishing everything, Albert tried his best to calm down, and with his heart still beating at a high speed, the collision between the Speed Force and the stone door allowed Albert to successfully obtain some information, and many problems were solved. First of all, the Speed Force does not necessarily kill Tony Stark, but killing Tony Stark can open the door faster. What blocks that door is not the power of the DC universe, but the power of the Marvel universe. This is an invasion. Behind that door is the channel for the DC universe to infiltrate into the Marvel universe. That's why the door shows the various parts of the DC universe, a different kind of supreme power. When that door appeared in the Marvel universe, the instinct to resist invasion caused the universe to block that door. However, now that the door has appeared, the blockade may not completely prevent the invasion of the power behind the door. As time went by, the power behind the door gradually became familiar with the rules of the Marvel universe. So one day, the Speed Force, as a representative of extreme speed, peeled off a small part from the door as a carrier and entered this universe in this way. Constantly drifting, it finally fell to the earth and was acquired by Albert's predecessor. If Albert had not traveled through time, then his predecessor would probably have been selected by the Speed Force one day and then become a glorious young man helping to open that door. If he failed, then he would have gone down in history as a villain. Definitely, Albert's situation is not much different now. The door is still closed after all, and the power behind it will not be able to enter the Marvel universe in large numbers. The penetration of the speed force into this world is already the limit, so if you want to open the door, you need to taking place within the Marvel Universe. And how to do it specifically? It's very simple, just destroy the power support of the Marvel Universe. As long as the power of the Marvel Universe is weakened to a certain extent, the power behind the door can directly and violently open the door without unblocking it. Every life or a powerful force is the supporting force of the universe, and the more special the life or force, the stronger the pillar it represents. As a sun-like superhero, Tony Stark there is no doubt that he is one of the strongest pillars of life. That's why the Speed Force showed such obvious emotions when it saw Tony. However, the Speed Force alone is still weak in the Marvel Universe. When it comes to fighting against the protective power of Tony Stark, it obviously falls behind. Being at a disadvantage, Elbert had no reaction at all. I don't really want to confront Stark. This is indeed a much smaller problem than before. What a small ghost. It's obviously more terrifying, right? Elbert, who knew the truth, was simply desperate. He originally thought that he could do whatever he wanted with the Speed Force, but it turned out that the price it's terrible to actually be against the whole world. Destroying the power support of the universe is obviously a no-brainer, but not doing it is also not a good choice. While blocking the door, the power of the Marvel Universe is also wearing away the stone door. The white light on the stone door is a kind of protection. And that protection has disappeared. This means that the Marvel Universe has recovered after the initial invasion. This is still its home field after all. If it continues, it will be a matter of time before the stone gate is completely wiped out. But if the stone door is obliterated, what will Elbert do? Apart from anything else, the Speed Force will definitely disappear if it has no source. What's more, when the Shyman is weak to a certain extent, the Speed Force it throws will definitely be perceived. If there is a person in your house who uses the power of the enemy, what will you do? Elbert doesn't have to think about it to know what his end will be. Now he is tied to the Speed Force and even the stone door. If the door is open, he will live. If the door is closed, he will die. No one would choose to die if they could live, even if it meant fighting a universe. Elbert has already died once, and he doesn't want to experience the horror of death a second time, so he must complete the mission of the Speed Force. For this, he almost has to bury more than half of the world's lives, and he has a time limit. This is a basically impossible task. If he starts to destroy lives, no matter what the reason is, he will face the resistance of countless people. Although the Speed Force is strong, it will definitely be beyond his power by then. But just because he can't complete it doesn't mean that others can't complete it. Elbert hasn't forgotten the problem he was worried about at the beginning, Thanos' disaster of destruction, using 6 infinite gems to instantly destroy half of all life in the universe. This is Elbert's only chance to succeed. By then, the Marvel Universe will be in an extremely weak state. As long as he can survive to the end and destroy the 6 infinite gems, Stone Gate will surely come with the power of the world. But this still leaves one question unsolved. How can Elbert win the bet with a 50% chance of survival? Currently, there are 2 ways. The first one is what Elbert was worried about before. He was imprisoned by the Speed Force because he was too close to the Speed Force. As a thing from another universe, the Speed Force is not within the control of the infinite gems. As long as it is in the Divine Speed Force C, Elbert doesn't have to think about whether he will be wiped out. But once he is imprisoned by the Speed Force, it will be difficult for Elbert to figure it out. Over time, he may annihilate his physical consciousness and completely become a puppet of the Speed Force, so there is no need to consider it until there is a solution to this problem. The second way is to replace Thanos to carry out the mission of destruction. That way he will definitely be fine, and there is no need to wait for Thanos to complete the mission before grabbing the Infinity Gauntlet from his hands. This method solves the future troubles, and at the same time in Blue Star Elbert has almost no natural enemies. Currently there are 3 infinite gems Tesseract, TIE Particles, and Eye of Agamotto on Earth, and it is basically possible for Elbert to get them. The other 3 that are not on the Blue Star are easy to deal with. As long as Elbert keeps at least one of them and lets Thanos find the other 5 as planned, it is not impossible for him to make a profit by then. The only question is whether he can just win Thanos. Compared with the first method, which is not practical, the second one is more feasible. At the same time, Elbert also has a direction to work towards. It is enough to make himself stronger than Thanos when facing him. Very good, the problem has been solved. Now it's up to me whether I can survive. With a strong lift of his waist, Elbert jumped up from the bed. Everything was back to the starting point. He wanted to become stronger and become strong enough. Strong just to survive. The improvement of the Speed Force also had a new answer after Elbert attacked Shyman. He did not need special training, he just needed to stay active. As mentioned before, Elbert's Speed Force has been growing in the past few months even if he has done nothing. The reason is that, compared to a virus implanted in the DC universe, as long as he still exists and continues to move, he will have a certain impact on the universe, even if this impact is originally negligible for the universe. But this subtle change will cause an equal amount of the Speed Force to be added to Elbert, which is the reason for the increase. The greater the changes caused by Elbert, the more the Speed Force would flow into his body. If he had really killed an important figure like Tony Stark at that time, the moment of turmoil would have been enough to cause Elbert's speed to skyrocket from 300 times the speed of sound to the speed of light, about 880 times the speed of sound. Or even more. Replacement, change, destruction, any behavior that causes turmoil will allow more power of the DC universe to penetrate into the world, and Elbert will become stronger and stronger. It seems that my previous arrangement was not right. Rubbing his chin with a slight beard, Elbert thought with a smile that replacing Norman in controlling Osborn Industry was only the first step. Next, Elbert would have to make preparations and intervene in other important events. In such a world, perhaps every hero must become a hero, but the road is walked by people, and the journey to the end may be smooth sailing, or it may be full of thorns and ups and downs. Blows can make people get up, but they can also depress them. Since they can't be killed, Elbert will become every obstacle on their way and will also clear away some unnecessary obstacles for them, so that every coincidence return to the ordinary and extend the time for their growth as much as possible. Which one is better, to be respected or to be feared? I want to say, can't you do both at the same time? Please allow me to introduce the weapon born for this, Stark Industries' trump card product. The first anti-gravity missile ejection. The system integrates the rapid counterattack technology developed by ourselves. Some people say that the best weapon does not need to be fired. I disagree. I think the best weapon only needs to be fired once. This is the approach of my father and all Americans, and it's been effective so far. As long as you find an excuse to launch such a missile once, I guarantee you that the bad guys will definitely hide in the cave and dare not come out. After saying that, Tony Stark ticked the missile rack on the side, finger indicating to the operator to press the button. Then I saw the missile system quickly start to move, slowly rising amidst the sound of mechanical operation and slowly facing the hills in the distance. After about 2 seconds, a roar suddenly erupted, and the missile quickly rushed into the sky, dragging its tail flame. Then the shell of the missile exploded in the air, revealing the appearance inside. More small missiles scattered from it. After a very short period of calibration, they flew out from the E*****N device carrying them, streaking across the tails of Mars, crashing into the undulating hills. For your reference, Jellicoe missile. After the words fell, the missile hit the mound on the ground, making a roar like thunder. A burst of fire burst into the sky in the distance, and there was a black smoke that covered the sky, and then a burst of the airflow carried the dust and hit them, blowing away the hats on everyone's heads. It even knocked Tony Stark, who was standing a few meters closer, to the point where he had to take 2 steps forward to offset the shockwave. Even though the specific power had not been measured on site, the shock of watching it from a distance was already obvious. Due to Jellicoe's unparalleled lethality and effective attack range, few things in the world today can survive as long as they are within coverage. Awesome. Seeing the power of the missile, the officers around them showed a hint of joy and shock and clapped their hands vigorously. For every $500 million in business, a box of wine will be given away. Cheers to peace. Tony Stark walked to the frozen box with a definitely look on his face, took out a glass of wine that had already been chilled, and went to his own table. Walking in the direction of the armored vehicle, he believed that everyone present would try their best to persuade the Ministry of National Defense to place a sufficient order for Stark Industries. Tony Stark took out his cell phone from his pocket, and after he connected it, he saw Obadiah shirtless, lying on his side on the bed. "Obi, what are you doing? I can't sleep without knowing your results. How is the situation?" Obadiah put one hand on the quilt and held a small communicator, ready to press it at any time. "Very good, it's as lively as Christmas here." Nodding, Tony Stark said lukewarmly. He still didn't have any dislike for Obadiah and even had some respect. After all, he was the one who helped Stark Industries survive. He had gone through the difficult period after Howard's unfortunate death, but he was too boring and always wanted to work in the laboratory. "Hey, there's something waiting for you, kid. Let's see you tomorrow." Obadiah heard Tony's answer, pressed the communicator in his hand without hesitation, and said meaningfully. Nodding his head noncommittally, Tony Stark hung up the video call and got into the armored vehicle without thinking about it. Hey, Tony. The soldier next to the car, when the door was closed, Rod, wearing a hat, ran over from behind and shouted, "This is my happy Jeep, your boring Jeep is in the back." Tony put his hands on the window to block Rhodes, pointed to the back and said, seeing this, Rhodes had no choice but to walk to the car behind. He always does this. Hey, what's that? Tony Stark looked at Rhodes, leaving with a smile, and was about to look back when he inadvertently saw a red afterimage, which made him feel familiar, as if he had been there before. I had seen the same thing before, so I subconsciously asked the soldier on the side. What? The soldier in question looked confused in the direction Tony pointed but saw nothing. Mr. Stark, there is nothing there and there can't be anything there. We have ensured the absolute safety here before. Safety. Okay, let's go. Tony Stark suddenly felt uneasy in his heart. Even the heavily armed soldiers could not dispel this haze, so he urged the soldiers to get on the road as soon as possible. He didn't want to stay here anymore. The soldier naturally had no objection to this. The soldier in charge of driving rushed out as soon as he stepped on the accelerator, and the long convoy began to move forward. He can actually see me. It's really a big trouble. Beside a mound some distance away from the convoy, Elbert frowned. He was around Stark before and wanted to see what the force protecting Stark would do to him. What kind of impact he had, but before he got too close, he felt Stark's eyes on him, which was simply unbelievable. Even soldiers with excellent eyesight would not be noticed if they walked past them at Elbert's speed, but from such a distance, Tony Stark could faintly feel his presence, which was undoubtedly a surprise to him. Very bad news, and this doesn't seem to be the first time. Tony Stark may have seen him before in Las Vegas. He also felt it when he left, but he didn't pay attention because of the stalemate between the speed force and the power of this world. That's all. You can't see me in person, but you can perceive my existence within a certain range. Should I say that your sixth sense is amazingly powerful? Elbert curled his lips in displeasure and looked at the horror less than 50 meters away. Molecules are using crude launchers to launch bombs one after another, undoubtedly products of Stark Industries. It seems that our genius Mr. Stark will suffer the consequences. Who are you? Raza quickly pulled out his pistol and looked warily at the man who suddenly appeared behind him. A slightly ferocious mask covered the man's head, making it difficult to see him clearly. Face, but as a warlord who has experienced life and death for a long time, he knows very well that the other party is an absolutely dangerous person. The person who saved you, don't be so nervous. Elbert ignored the modified pistol in Raza's hand that could blow someone's head off at any time, and approached the warlord leader with a murderous look on his face very leisurely, out of sight of Raza. At such a speed, he had already ejected the bullets from the opponent's magazine. And you are holding a gun without bullets, so I don't feel threatened. What? Raza was stunned subconsciously, and then years of experience in holding a gun made him instantly judge that Elbert was right, and the gun in his hand became lighter. When you want to shoot in the future, don't forget to put them back. Elbert threw the silver-white special bullets on the table, sat in Raza's position, propped up his chin with both hands and looked at the livid face. Raza, how did you do it? Who asked you to come? We can talk. Raza was sure that before he drew the gun and pointed it at Elbert, there was absolutely no problem with the bullet. This situation was beyond him. Imagination, so he didn't immediately shout to attract the guards outside, but wanted to see what Elbert wanted to do. Since there was no action at the beginning, it meant that there was room for negotiation. Unlike other thugs, Raza did not hate violence, but if communication could solve the problem, then use voice to decide the outcome. We can definitely talk. My request is submission, nailing, or death. Choose one. Elbert picked up a grenade from the table, turned it around and saw the logo on it, Stark Industries, haha. Obadiah really sells everything from big file sizes to small ones. You want me to listen to you? This is not a good choice. Raza looked at Elbert with a lunatic look. He had to admit that this guy dared to come to his base alone. He did have some ability, but he is just not clear-headed. I don't know how you did it just now, but this is my territory. As long as I give the order, dozens of fully armed soldiers will rush in and kill you at any time. Are you still here? Can you unload all the bullets? Your people, do you want to meet yours? Elbert's face under the mask showed a playful smile. Before Raza could say anything, a crimson lightning carried him to the outside of the tent and looked in front of him. With the corpses piled up in a pile, Raza's pupils suddenly dilated, and inexplicable fear spread in his heart. Bend your knees or die, I'm waiting for your choice. After lightly patting Raza on the shoulder, Elbert walked to the pile of corpses and picked up a handful of dropped microflush. Oh, it's from Stark Industries again. Products. If the American military captures this place and discovers these equipment, will it be thought that these terrorists are raised by Stark? I submit. Faced with a power beyond human beings, people always give in easily even if he is a complete villain. What happened today completely exceeded Raza's cognition. Could it be that Elbert is a member of the America's military, a secretly trained Superman, just like the Captain of the United States back then? No, 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 the Captain of the United States is not so scary. He is at best a powerful human being, but Raza doesn't know what to call Elbert. This mysterious man in front of him easily took away his own in the entire camp. He swore that only a few minutes had passed since he walked into the tent and saw Elbert. In such a short time, only God could do such a thing, definitely, or maybe the devil. Raza didn't dare to decide whether Elbert was a god or a devil. Looking at his men waking up one by one, he knew that if he made the slightest move, he would turn into a real corpse the next moment. Boss, what should I call you? Raza stepped into the role quickly, letting his confused men return to their posts after waking up, and then stood respectfully in front of Elbert, completely unable to tell that he had drawn his gun before, threatening Elbert's ferocity. You are very smart, I like that, call me Speed. It's very appropriate, isn't it? Is Raza smart? He is not too smart, I can only say that he is not stupid. Anyway, he has survived until now, but he can't understand the situation very well. Compared with Obedi, he is just a little ant. If you want to kill him, it's so simple. But Raza not only dared to seek skin from the tiger but even tried to blackmail the tiger. Should it be said that the benefits were too great or that he could not withstand the temptation? Okay, Mr. Speed, what do you need me to do? You caught Tony Stark. Yes, I have a deal with Mr. Obedi of Stark Industries. He hired me to kill Stark. After saying that, Raza was afraid that Elbert was coming to save Stark, so he quickly added, but don't worry, Stark, if he's still alive, I'm not that stupid to kill him directly. Stark is a gold brick that can make me a new powerful weapon, the new Jellicoe missile. Have you seen it? I have seen it. It is indeed a good weapon. In fact, I followed the convoy from the test site. Your people are very good at covering up traces. As a conventional weapon, the Jellicoe missile is indeed good, but it is different from various compared with black technology. It can't even be ranked. Take me to Stark. Yes, you come with me. Hearing Elbert say that he came with the convoy, Raza instantly wanted to strangle the B*******D who led the team to attack Stark. Not only did he almost blow up Stark, the gold mine, but he brought back such an evil star, and now the leader of a liberal warlord immediately became someone else's younger brother. He suddenly regretted that he should not have accepted this deal because of greed. Lord Godspeed, do you want to open the door? Drove from the camp to the cave where Tony Stark was imprisoned, Lazar led the way in person with a look of shamelessness on his face, which indeed shocked the eyes of many of his subordinates. But seeing that his boss was so respectful they did not dare to be presumptuous, they stood on both sides of the corridor in an orderly manner with their heads held high and their chests held high. No need. With the medical conditions here, can Stark be saved? Looking through the surveillance window into the cave, 2 terrorists and a doctor named Yinsen were performing emergency surgery on Stark. Elbert just glanced at it. I couldn't help but look back and asked, this can no longer be said to be simple. There is no medical condition at all. Stark can survive. He is worthy of being the protagonist. It should be okay. When asked by Elbert, Raza replied uncertainly. In his opinion, a dead horse is treated as a living horse doctor. After he is cured, he will let Stark make him a weapon to save him. If he doesn't come back, he can also ask Oba to pay for it, and he won't lose at both ends. But judging from Elbert's attitude, it seems that he doesn't want Stark to die, so he cautiously added, should we transfer him to the hospital? Hospital? Are there any good hospitals nearby? In his current condition, he can go to see God even if he moves. How do you transfer him? And I can guarantee that if you dare to send him to the hospital, the US military will be able to transport you tomorrow, destroyed. Elbert asked angrily, leaving Raza speechless. Let them continue and see if Stark's life is strong enough. After saying that, Elbert turned around and left. To be honest, when Raza suggested transferring Stark, his heart did move. This was an opportunity to kill him directly, but when he thought of the power that could suppress even the Speed Force, Elbert felt a stomachache. He could kill Stark at any time now, but who knew what the consequences would be? Elbert, who had already planned his way out, didn't want to die a big death now. Definitely, if Stark failed to survive and died suddenly during the operation, it would have nothing to do with him, but it was impossible to think about it. Sure enough, a few hours later, someone came to inform Raza that Stark had been rescued. Raza stood up and looked at Elbert, seeking instructions from him. In just a few hours, after witnessing Elbert's extraordinary power, the fierce warlord had become completely accustomed to his role as his younger brother. Contact Obadiah and tell him that Tony Stark is in your hands. If you want his life, you have to pay more. Elbert pointed to the computer Raza used for communication and motioned for him to talk to Obadiah. But sir, I have offered a very high figure before. If I continue to increase the price, Obadiah may not agree. Raza said with some hesitation. He had blackmailed Obadiah once before. If he does it again, he won't agree. Determine whether Obadiah will agree. It doesn't matter, just contact him and remember the video. Elbert said nonchalantly, and don't underestimate Obadiah's determination and his wealth. What you call a high price may be nothing more than that in his eyes. Yes, I will contact you now. Hearing what Elbert said, Raza stopped hesitating and opened the computer's recording program first, then entered a special address. Soon Obadiah appeared on the screen. Raza turned around subconsciously, wanting to ask what Elbert said next, but when she turned around, she realized that Elbert had disappeared. Lazar, how is things going? I hope I can hear the good news. Obadiah said with a smile on his face. He had already received the news of Tony's disappearance. In his opinion, Raza contacted him probably. For the sake of the bounty and thinking of Raza's previous blackmail, Obadiah was thinking, how can he send this fool to see God so that he can have clear thoughts? Definitely, Tony Stark is in my hands now. In order to get Obadiah to pay, Raza asked his men to take a photo of Stark, and now he showed it to Obadiah across the screen. He's quiet now. Oh, is he dead? After staring at the photo for 2 seconds, Obadiah confirmed that there was nothing wrong and asked in a happier mood. No, not yet. He just took a nap. People always need to rest, right? Although Elbert is no longer here, Lazar doesn't dare to make the slightest move. Who knows when he will appear behind you, so he followed Elbert's orders honestly. Why don't you do it? If you kill him, you can get the money. I think you have never seen so much money in the warlord business until now. Obadiah's eyes turned cold and things were a little bit. Unexpectedly, but beyond his reach, he still couldn't contain Raza. It's definitely because of the money, you're right. I've never seen so much money, so I want more, double the price or I'll put Stark back. Obadiah said with some contempt. Raza was very unhappy with the tone, so he carried out Elbert's instructions without hesitation and looked at Obadiah with a threatening face. You are looking for death. Do you want to take a bet? Will you let Tony go first or will my men kill you first? Obadiah's eyes were filled with fierceness. He had had enough of this little b*** d opposite him. Greed, and this time he has hit the bottom line. Stark must die. Then you can try. The US military base is right next to me. The worst is to break up. Raza was not afraid of the threat of Obadiah, not to mention that he was originally a fierce thug, but now he has a transcendent person like Elbert to do it. Backer, a mere Obadiah is nothing. Prepare a new account. I hope to see Tony's body tomorrow. Obadiah closed the communication and punched the mirror in front of him hard. Pieces flew everywhere, but he quickly dialed the number, got another number. Hey boss, what are your orders? Get rid of Raza for me at all costs, Obadiah ordered. Although this was not very safe and might lead to some problems being discovered, he couldn't bear it anymore, and Raza's behavior made him uneasy. He couldn't determine whether Raza would really kill Stark. He had to let his own people do it to ensure that Tony would never come back. Tony Stark slowly opened his eyes. The severe pain in his head made his mind go blank. He subconsciously wanted to take deep breaths to relieve the twitching pain. But after exerting force, he noticed the foreign body sensation in his nose and quickly pulled out the thing in his nose. It turned out to be a breathing tube, but looking at the gray-yellow color on it, Tony suddenly felt a little chilly. This must be too dirty. However, the pain that came from his brain and throat at the same time soon left him no time to care about whether the breathing tube was clean. He wanted to get up but found that his upper body was fixed to the bed by a wooden frame and he could not move at all. Neng reached out and groped around on the bedside table, hoping to find something to ease his predicament. Even if he couldn't find a glass of water, it would at least make his throat more comfortable. Soon Tony's hand felt the cold metal touch. He opened his palm and touched it. It should be a quilt because the bedside table was much higher than the bed he was lying on, so Tony couldn't see what was going on above, so he could only be careful. To test, slowly pick up the cup. The pain and weakness left him with little strength, and it was difficult for him to hold even a glass of water steadily. Soon another force was added to the cup, helping Tony Stark bring the water cup to his mouth. There was no time to say thank you, but the burning pain in his throat made Tony eagerly drink the water from the cup. The cool pleasure passed through his mouth and fell down his throat into his stomach, just like drizzle moistening the dry land. Tony couldn't quite remember it. It had been a long time since he had experienced this kind of refreshing feeling, even if it was just a glass of ordinary water in his hand. But in his opinion, even the most expensive wine in his wine library could not compare with it. "Oh, thank you very much. Can you tell me what's going on now?" After drinking every drop of the water in the cup, Tony remembered the person who brought him the water, turned his head and looked at the head of the bed, and what he saw was he is a bald man with a smile on his face. Anyone who sees the bald face for the first time will think that the owner of this face is a thug, and Tony is no exception, so after asking, he carefully added, you don't want to kidnap me, do you?" "No, no, no, I had no intention of kidnapping you. In fact, it was quite the opposite. I saved your life." Raza had Elbert's instructions and had already released Tony Stark from the cave. Although the medical condition was still there, nothing improved, but at least Tony's first impression was that he was not imprisoned. "We found you during a battle with a group of thugs. There were corpses lying on the ground next to you. You were the only one. It's hard to imagine that you could survive such a violent bombardment. I have to say that it's really good luck." Raza's words slowly revived Tony's memory. He remembered what happened before he fell into coma. Their convoy was attacked. The enemy's firepower far exceeded the soldiers protecting him. In the end, Tony covered his head in pain. He only remembered that a bomb exploded next to him. He thought he was dead at the time. It seemed that God was still on his side. "Thank you, your kind deeds will be rewarded as you deserve." After thinking about the cause and effect, Tony's eyes were filled with joy for the rest of his life. At the same time, he was also very grateful to Raza for saving him. He raised his body and thought he stood up, but the wooden frame that fixed his upper body made it impossible for him to move. "This is it. This is to prevent you from moving around and pulling the wound. I can bring it, but don't do it rashly, otherwise the wound will be torn and it will be very troublesome." Raza put his hands on the wooden frame and saw Tony nodding before answering. "Open the locks on both sides and remove the wooden frame. Although you survived, the shrapnel has pierced your chest. We can only use magnets to absorb the shrapnel, otherwise they will flow along the blood vessels to your heart. His life is completely over." Without the obstruction of the wooden frame, Tony raised his body slightly and looked at the bandage tied to his chest. There was a round magnet underneath. 2 wires were connected to a battery along the edge of the bed to ensure that there would be enough suction at all times to immobilize the shrapnel that could kill him. The medical conditions here are not good, so this is the last resort. Looking at Tony looking at the magnet on his chest, Raza added, "If your condition improves, we can consider taking you to the hospital. But not now. I understand, and I'm very grateful to you for saving my life." Tony came back to his senses and thanked Raza again. The current situation was completely beyond his expectation, but fortunately his ability to accept was not weak, and everyone else was after trying so hard to save him, it would be unreasonable to dislike him. Although Tony could be quite an asterisk hole sometimes, he still couldn't do this kind of thing. Looking at the decorations around him, you could tell that the other person was not a rich person. "Is there a phone here? I hope you can contact the America garrison and ask them to send someone to pick me up. But thanks are thanks, Tony doesn't want to stay here any longer. He needs better medical conditions," but after saying the words America garrison, Raza's face instantly turned ugly. This reminded him of where he was. This was the Imperial Cemetery. There were more than tens of millions of people who had a grudge against America. The bald man in front of him, couldn't it be one of them? Tony felt anxious for a moment. "We do have a phone number, but I won't help you contact the America garrison. Because of some things, we don't want to contact them." Fortunately, although Raza didn't look good, he didn't do anything drastic, which made Tony relaxed. Take a breath. "Are you afraid of them? You can rest assured that as long as you let me talk to them, I believe they will never make things difficult for you." Seeing that Raza's attitude did not change much, Tony continued to persuade. "No, you don't understand. No matter who you are, those butchers will not let us go. As soon as they show up, they will want to kill us. You don't have to think about contacting the America garrison. If you want to contact your family, I want to help, but it must not have anything to do with the American garrison." Raza decisively rejected Tony's idea. He knew how much he had a foundation in the American military, and now it would be better to deceive Tony Stark. "Okay, once you come into contact with the American garrison, you are guaranteed to be beaten into pieces in minutes." "That's okay. I'll give you a phone number, it's my uncle's. His name is Obadiah Stane. You can tell him my situation and he will send someone to rescue me. Seeing that Raza insisted on not wanting to talk to him, after being contacted by the military, Tony didn't know what to say, so he just asked for Obadiah's contact information. Although it might be a detour, it was better than nothing. Okay, I'll go right away. It turns out your name is Tony Stark, and your uncle's name is Obadiah, right? Raza held a piece of paper and asked Tony Stark to write down Obadiah's name and contact information. He was about to help him contact him, but when he turned around, he seemed to have found something on the note. He looked back at Tony with wide eyes. Wait a minute, you said this person named Obadiah is you? Uncle. Is he hairless like me and his beard is already a little gray? Yes, you have seen him. Is there any problem? Tony was confused by Raza's sudden movements and he was also a little confused. How did Raza know what Obadiah looked like of? After we defeated the group of thugs who attacked you, we intercepted something. I think you should maybe take a look. Raza looked at Tony with an expression of pity and then turned to a table not far away. He went up and brought over a laptop that looked very damaged. Tony even doubted whether this thing could still be booted successfully. This computer belongs to the thug leader who attacked you. Many of the things in it have been unreadable due to damage to the disk. Only a few bits have been preserved. Among them is a paragraph about the leader and others, a person's call history. Raza lit up the laptop. After a short boot, only a few applications could be seen on the somewhat broken screen. In front of Tony, Raza clicked on a folder. For some reason, Tony suddenly became panicked before he saw the contents. Thinking of Raza's behavior just now, he had a bad premonition. Sure enough, a face that he was very familiar with quickly appeared on the screen. It was Obadiah. Although the screen kept flashing and most of the words were unintelligible, there was one sentence that Tony could hear very well. Clear, I hope to see Tony's body tomorrow. At this moment, Tony felt like the world was spinning. He couldn't believe that the person he once respected the most wanted to kill him. But the facts are in front of him, and it's impossible not to believe it. Tony hopes the video is fake, but as an expert in this field, he knows very well that this is not a synthesis, but a fact. Can you please leave me alone for a while? Tony reached out and clicked on some replays. He listened to Obadiah's murderous words over and over again. His expressions could not tell his emotional changes, but Raza, you know, he is a volcano now and may erupt at any time. I'm just outside the door. If anything happens, you can just shout. Raza wisely exited the tent, leaving enough space for Tony. As soon as the door curtain was closed, Raza's face suddenly turned into a sly smile, deceiving a person like this. Genius is indeed a very enjoyable experience. Well done, I didn't expect you to have such acting skills. The sudden voice startled Lazar, but when he saw it was Elbert, he quickly put on a flattering look. You are all an adult, you have taught me well, I just following your orders. But my lord, is there any point in doing this? Tony Stark will find out sooner or later that I deceived him. How dark Raza's background is, you only need to check it to find out. Once Tony returns to Stark Industries, through a check of the military's network revealed everything. That's why I asked you to show Tony that video so that he won't have time to trouble you. After a while, I will change your identity for you, and there won't be any problems. Show it to Tony Stark. The video was blurred, with only Obadiah's unilateral record, and it was deliberately made to look severely damaged, leaving only a few key words. Everything was true except that Raza was removed, just come out. Why you can't bear to live as a warlord here and don't want to change your identity? Absolutely not. How dare I stay here? It's better to follow you for safety. Raza smiled bitterly. Before, he was so obsessed that he agreed to Obadiah to help him get rid of Tony Stark. Now he, as you see, if he kills Tony Stark, he himself won't survive. Regardless of whether the military was trying to trouble him or not, the group of guys wearing black body armor sent by Obadiah lying outside the camp would kill him. Recalling the special operations team that sneaked in quietly last night and almost killed him, Raza shuddered a little, but the look he looked at Elbert was more respectful. Such an elite soldier who could easily crush him could be defeated in the blink of an eye. All fell to the ground. This is not an adjective, but a real blink of an eye. Elbert also knocked out the guards in the Raza camp before, but that was just looking at the results directly. It was not as shocking as watching the process live, although he actually didn't watch it at all. See how Elbert did it, but this undoubtedly raised Elbert's image again. Now, Raza really has no objections to Elbert. He finally understood that he couldn't stay in the Imperial Cemetery. If he wanted to survive, he could only hold on to Elbert's golden thigh. Moreover, despite his current glory, he was a big boss and even the American garrison couldn't find him. But to put it bluntly, isn't it still a mouse hiding in Tibet? Once he is discovered one day, it will be the moment of catastrophe. Instead of eating ashes here, it is better to change his identity with Elbert and find a new way out. 3 days later, Tony's body had almost recovered. Although nothing could be done about the shrapnel in his chest, at least it would not affect his normal activities. During this period, Tony did not mention the Obadiah incident again, except that the phone had been completely broken. Computer, no one knows what he is thinking. Are you leaving today? I hope you won't come back again. This is not a place for people like you. Raza raised his glass and touched it with Tony. With his superb acting skills in the past 3 days, Raza with a black face but kind heart image, he successfully gained Tony's trust. Aren't you coming with me? You also know that this place is not good. Leave with me. Even your brother's Stark Industries has a place to house them. After seeing the harsh environment of the camp, Tony couldn't bear to give in. If his savior continues to stay in this place, isn't it just a few hundred people? The Stark industrialist has a huge business and is afraid that he won't be able to support them. No, this is our hometown. Even if it is really not good, we will not leave. Raza took a sip of the wine and a slightly bitter taste passed through his throat just like his life, even if sometimes it tastes bad. Well, you'll still swallow it. Well, I hope we still have a chance to meet. Tony didn't know how to comfort Raza. He was a prodigal son who never knew the meaning of home. Since his father passed away, he had no concept of home. Maybe. Tony suddenly remembered a beautiful figure that was the last person he recalled under the bomb. Maybe she was the only one who could give him the feeling of home. Potts. For the first time, the prodigal son also felt homesick. There will be a chance. I can survive until now, but I am not a fool. Raza laughed, but he felt very guilty. This time he almost fell into trouble. That's good, it's almost time, I'm leaving. Putting down the wine glass in his hand, Tony looked at the watch Raza gave him. It was not long before the appointed time. He waved goodbye to Raza and Stark sat down, got into a jeep. Knowing that Obadiah was the mastermind behind the scenes, Tony naturally had no intention of continuing to contact him, so he contacted Potts through Jarvis. And at Raza's request, agreed on a place relatively far away from the camp to pick him up. Pack your things, we should go. Watching Tony Stark leave, Raza squeezed out tears and scolded the B***D who gave him the idea. She shouldn't have listened to his nonsense and eaten that shit. I can't stop crying now. Mr. Stark, we can only send you here. There is a safe area ahead. There will be no danger, so we can only let you pass by yourself. After sending Tony to the agreed place, the driver stopped. Raza had given them repeated orders not to come into contact with the people who came to pick up Tony, so naturally they did not dare to follow Tony there. Seeing this, Tony didn't insist. He opened the car door directly, walked out with a battery in his arms, and waited next to a huge amount of stone for only a short while before he saw a Black Hawk helicopter flying towards his position. After many days, Tony looked at the helicopter, feeling a new life in his heart but also a little empty, as if something was missing. It would be great if Raza left with me. Thinking of Raza's somewhat fierce face, Tony still felt nostalgic, but seeing Li Ying eagerly jumping out of the landing helicopter, Tony instantly put that aside, leaving the disappointment behind. He hugged the other person's body tightly. Potts, it's quite expected, but... Not far away, Elbert followed the shadow of the mound and observed the people around Tony Stark. In addition to the expected Pepper Potts, there were also Colonel Rhodes, and a beautiful woman with red shawl, short hair, and a very sexy figure. Can Shiel D not be able to bear it anymore? Although the identity of the other party was not confirmed, Elbert still recognized the other party due to this obvious feature, Shiel. D's level 7, level 10 in the comics, mainly the movie version here, Agent, the famous Black Widow Natasha Romanoff. Tony's father, Howard, is one of the founders of SHIELD, and his importance is indeed worthy of SHIEL. D's dispatch, everything is over. I believe that after Tony returns, Obadiah will treat him well, although Elbert is very fond of Obadiah. Di has no confidence at all, but this does not prevent him from clarifying the relationship. At least as a check, Obadiah can still hold on for a few months. Even though his attack on Tony was exposed, in many cases, evidence is required. Tony had completely destroyed the only evidence in his anger. This time he could only fight with Obadiah when he returned. Just what Elbert wanted. He has already changed part of his destiny. Tony has not yet become Iron Man, and the fight with Obadiah is bound to continue to delay this progress. When will Tony suddenly have a sudden idea to build a steel battle suit? Not now anyway. Then the next step is to replace Osborne Industries. He hopes that the hungry wolves on Wall Street have made enough profits for him in this incident, so that he can get rid of those shareholders first and annex Osborne Industries faster. The terrorists like Raza have now surrendered to him. This is a very considerable force. He does not need to worry about manpower issues in the near future, so in order to allow them to appear as an above-board person, Elbert must get it done as soon as possible. Osborne Industries and then clear their identities. Mr. Elbert, this is the result of the mission you entrusted us to operate. It's really unimaginable. If I hadn't known that you had been in New York these days, I would have even thought that you had kidnapped Mr. Stark. Henry said with admiration on his face. A certificate of equity holding was handed to Elbert. A few days ago, Elbert went to Wall Street to find them and asked them to buy Stark Industries stock, which had plummeted due to the disappearance of Tony Stark. Now it was time for them to show the results of the transaction. 2% of Stark Industries shares are very good. Your company is well-deserved. If there are similar jobs in the future, I will definitely give you priority. Elbert looked at the number on the certificate with satisfaction. All his savings, except for normal apart from the living expenses, it has become such a proof, but he does not regret it, and he will not regret doing anything else. Although 2% is a small amount, Stark Industries' market value is close to $300 billion US dollars. This 2% is equivalent to $6 billion, and with the return of Tony Stark, Stark Industries stocks have begun to rise again. Now I want to use there is no way to buy it at normal prices, let alone Elbert bought it at the lowest price. Thank you very much for your trust. To be honest, we could have acquired more, but the competitors are too strong. This 2% is already the limit, Henry said with some regret. The predators who came out of the middle there were too many and too strong, and they didn't dare to provoke them easily. I understand this, and I'll be happy to work together next time. Regarding Henry's statement, Elbert responded with an understanding smile. This is a normal situation. The Stark industrial volume is placed there. Tony Stark is very important, but compared to the entire company, it's not that important. Now that the stock price has plummeted, I don't know how many hungry wolves want to swallow this piece of fat. Even SHIELD has intervened. If he hadn't seen the opportunity quickly, let alone 2%, 100%, even 0.2% may not be obtained. After sending Henry away, Elbert was confirmed to have locked the safe and was pruning branches in the backyard leisurely, waiting for others to come to the door. These 2% shares were not easy to get. Elbert believed that Henry's professional ethics would not reveal his information, otherwise he wouldn't have found him. But some things can't be hidden, at least not from SHIELD, sir. I remember that breaking into a private house is a felony. Even if you are a police officer, I have the right to shoot you. So before I do it, please give me a valid reason, otherwise I will say goodbye to the rest of your life. Sure enough, Henry didn't walk long before someone easily opened Elbert's locked door and appeared in front of him like a leisurely stroll. I am Agent Phil Coulson, representing the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency. Here is my ID. Appearing opposite Elbert was a middle-aged man in his 30s, with an average height of America is taller, not too outstanding, and his hair is meticulously combed, which shows that he is a very serious person. Homeland Strategy, are you from the Department of Defense? I don't remember what I did to sell out America. You have the wrong person. Elbert stopped his pruning work and pointed to the table and chair next to him to signal Phil Coulson to sit down. He poured himself a cup of black tea and poured another cup for Phil Coulson, and then drank by himself, not caring about Phil Coulson's name at all. No, we are not part of the Department of Defense of America, but an independent department directly under the International Security Council. Phil Coulson took a sip of black tea and praised the taste, then smiled and gave Elbert some information about which department he belonged to, and then he said directly, "We found out, Doctor Elbert, that during the disappearance of Tony Stark, the chairman of Stark Industries, you entrusted Henry Firm to earn a large amount of funds and exchanged them for 100% of Stark Industries. 2 shares. Yes, you are very well informed. Henry just came over half an hour ago to hand over the equity certificate to me, but what's the matter? There are many people who make more than me. You can't arrest me for this, right?" Elbert was quite cheerful. He admitted the fact. There is nothing to hide. Being secretive will only arouse suspicion. Absolutely not. America is a free country and the stock market is even more so. The fact that you can make so much money, Doctor, is your ability. Naturally, we have no right to interfere. Phil Coulson nodded and said that Elbert was right, and then the conversation changed. But Dr. Elbert, please explain, why did you issue the commission when Mr. Stark had not yet been reported missing? Did you know that Mr. Stark would disappear? Or you were the one who disappeared, the culprit? Who is the culprit? You can't slander anyone. You have to rely on evidence to do anything. Be careful if I sue you for defamation. Now I am also a rich man. Believe it or not, I will sue you until you go bankrupt. Regarding Phil Coulson's accusation, Albert decisively refused to answer, and I have no reason and no ability to be the culprit. I have been resting at home during this period, and the neighbors around me can testify for me. No, you have a reason. You were fired by Stark Industries a few years ago, right? You had the motive to murder Mr. Stark. As for proof of presence, this is not a problem. Some things do not require you to do it yourself. Just hire someone else to do it, you just need to make a few phone calls. Phil Coulson's eyes gradually became stern, and he even bowed slightly, and his hand had already reached the holster of the gun as if he was facing a thug. Always be ready to draw your gun and fight back. For a moment, the atmosphere between the two people solidified. Albert put down the teacup, stared at the agent in front of him seriously, suddenly smiled strangely, and the next words made Phil Coulson's face change drastically. Agent Phil Coulson, I'm in the tea room. It's poisoned. Ha 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 ha, Agent Phil Coulson, you really should take a closer look. Your expression just now was so funny, ha ha ha. In the backyard, Albert held his stomach and laughed wildly, while Phil Coulson on the other side looked embarrassed. Albert's words of poisoning frightened him so much that he almost drew a gun and threatened Albert to hand over the antidote. Although he couldn't see his face, Phil Coulson could still imagine that it was definitely not worth it. Things to remember. Dr. Albert, have you laughed enough? You have to know that if I had been a little too aggressive just now, you might be lying on the ground now. Looking at Albert, who was still laughing wildly, Phil Coulson put the drawn pistol on the table. Go up, said angrily. But you didn't you? You are a good man, Phil Coulson, I can see that. Seeing Phil Coulson's depressed expression, Albert stopped laughing, but the smile in his eyes couldn't stop, and he sat down again. On the chair, he picked up the teapot and gave himself another cup, then motioned to Phil Coulson, would you like another cup? It tastes great. No, Dr. Albert, intimidating government personnel is a felony. Hearing Albert's question, Phil Coulson became even darker and said with gritted teeth. If he hadn't been a good old man, Albert would have had his head ripped open by now. Slandering a legal citizen is also a felony. Agent Phil Coulson, it was you who first threatened me with a bunch of non-existent myths. Albert spread his hands in a good mood, indicating that it was none of my business. You were the one who made the move first. Hands, I am just treating others in their own way. Okay, I admit my mistake, I shouldn't have done this, but Dr. Albert, you do have suspicions. If you don't explain clearly why you know, Tony Stark will disappear and we may take some extraordinary measures. My colleagues will not everyone has a good temper. Phil Coulson first decisively admitted his mistake and then advised him in a sincere tone. I didn't know that Tony Stark would disappear. Albert shook his head in denial. When Phil Coulson wanted to refute, he raised his hand to stop Phil Coulson and continued, when I was fired from Stark Industries, it did make me feel a little uncomfortable. So after getting my patent licensing fees, I decided to buy a batch of Stark Industries stocks. Definitely, this is not the main reason why I can seize the opportunity. Seeing Phil Coulson's disbelief, Albert continued to add, what really made me determined was Tony Stark's absence from the annual award ceremony for the highest honor. I don't know that Tony Stark is missing, but his lack of concern for national awards will undoubtedly turn some people off to him. In addition, Stark Industries has been working behind closed doors some time ago and has not developed any new products. There are rumors that there are problems with Stark Industries' new research and development. Tony himself was trapped in the laboratory because of this, so he was unable to attend the award ceremony. But this is just a rumor, not enough for people to believe it. Doctor, you are not a fool, you cannot believe it easily. Phil Coulson also heard similar rumors. This is true, in fact it is more than that. For example, Stark fell ill, and even there are so many rumors about being in ruins that if you really want to investigate, there are all kinds of outrageous rumors. I definitely don't believe it, but what does it matter whether I believe it or not? Albert affirmed Phil Coulson's words, but then asked, do you know what are the important conditions that affect the stock market? Sometimes the news is on the surface, is more likely to affect changes in the stock market than facts. Regardless of whether the news is true or false, as long as most people pass on the news, they will think that it may be true, and this possibility will cause Stark Industries stock to fall. In ancient times in this place, this is called three people becoming a tiger. So doctor, you have chosen to buy shares of Stark Industries at this time. Phil Coulson had a look of disbelief on his face, but this seemed to be a reason. That's it. I thought Stark Industries stock would fall, but I didn't expect it to fall to such a degree because of Mr. Stark's disappearance. It's lucky to say the least. Elbert said with a thankful expression. Okay, Dr. Elbert, thank you for clarifying my doubts. I apologize again for being rude before, I hope you don't mind. Phil Coulson stood up and said with a sincere face. Definitely, this is your job, I'm glad you can take it so seriously. At least it shows that there are good people like you, Agent Phil Coulson, doing their best to protect us law-abiding citizens. Elbert also stood up. Holding Phil Coulson's hand, I also apologize for my previous rudeness and I hope to get your forgiveness. Thank you very much for your understanding. You said that I am a good person and good people don't care about this. Phil Coulson's face warmed up and he followed Elbert's words and made a little joke. Excuse me for today, now that the matter is clear, then it's time for me to say goodbye. Go on your way, I won't see you off. Elbert watched Phil Coulson walk out of the house and politely helped him close the useless door. He smiled in return. The two of them looked away for a moment. The smile on Coulson's face disappeared, but Elbert still had a smile on his face, but compared to the formulaic smile before, this time he was sincere. If nothing else, he should be able to be quiet for a while. Will Phil Coulson believe his reasons? He will definitely not believe it. He is a good old man, but he is not a senile person. If he believes this nonsense, Nick Fury will definitely kick him out of SHIELD. But since Phil Coulson left without revealing anything, this at least shows that his, or SHIELD's attitude towards Elbert is not as tough as it seems, and this inquiry is more like a warning. They don't know if Elbert is real and has something to do with Tony Stark's disappearance. The purpose of Phil Coulson coming here is to warn Elbert that no matter whether he is really related or not, we have already targeted you. Please be more honest in the future and don't cause trouble just because you think you have some money. The warning is over, at least until the next time it is discovered that Elbert is related to some big event. SHIEL. D will not take any action against him. Definitely, if they take action, it will not be such a light warning now. Phil Coulson walked out of Elbert's house with no smile on his face before. It was pretty much what Elbert had thought. His mission this time was mainly to warn and test. Is the disappearance of Tony Stark related to Elbert? SHIELD still felt some numbers. Even if we didn't know it before, it was Obadiah who sent people to get rid of Tony. But with Black Widow, a top agent, making insinuations, the matter was generally clear. But there was one thing that made Nick Fury very confused. The people who rescued Tony were found in the military network, and they were definitely not good people. If Obadiah hired them to attack Tony, Nick would think it was reasonable, but in fact it was just the opposite. They rescued Tony. And he was released safely, which I couldn't figure out at all. But America was too far away in the Imperial Cemetery, and he wanted to figure out the key. It would not happen overnight. Under Elbert's order, Raza had already hidden his people. Nick Fury wanted to find it, and it was like looking for a needle in a haystack. So as the next best thing, Nick asked Phil Coulson to handle another strange thing. According to all investigation results, Elbert did have nothing to do with Stark's disappearance, but this was the biggest doubt. Nick didn't believe in coincidence, so let Phil Coulson try it out, but now it seems that Phil Coulson didn't get much useful information. Sir. Phil Coulson walked straight to the car not far away. Two agents responsible for monitoring and preventing accidents opened the door and asked about the next step. Go back first, don't alert the enemy yet. Phil Coulson got into the back seat and motioned for one of the agents to drive. He leaned on the seat, closed his eyes and thought for a while, then dialed Nick Fury's phone. Director, this is Phil Coulson. Phil Coulson, how was the result of the mission? Nick Fury didn't wait for what Phil Coulson said and directly asked about the result of the test. He believed that Phil Coulson would not disturb him before the mission was completed. I'm sorry, Director, I didn't get much useful information. Phil Coulson felt a little ashamed. He had done similar tasks countless times but rarely failed like today. Then you think Elbert has no problem? Nick frowned when he heard Phil Coulson's words. Phil Coulson is not usually outstanding, but in the entire SHIELD. His ability is definitely ranked high and he didn't even ask anything. See, come on, he underestimated Elbert. No, on the contrary, I think Elbert has a big problem. Although Tony Stark's disappearance has nothing to do with him, he must have known that Tony Stark would disappear. Phil Coulson recalled every detail of his contact with Elbert. Too calm and overconfident, so confident that he doesn't look like a scientist who just got rich overnight, but a powerful monarch. And he seems to know that I will find him even. Even he knows that which department does it belong to. That's impossible, Phil Coulson. Our existence is highly confidential. Even Tony Stark doesn't know about it. He can't know. Nick tapped his fingers on the table. While refuting Phil Coulson, his mind was also racing. Analysis. Elbert knew about SHIELD. How did he know it? In other words, there was actually a huge force behind him. I understand this, but Director, Elbert's behavior at that time was too calm, as if everything was definitely, and he even dared to communicate with me in a provocative way. This is not the state that a normal person should have. After Elbert said when he poisoned the tea, Phil Coulson really believed it. At that moment, countless associations ran through his mind. He knew very well that if another agent, such as Barton or Natasha Romanoff, would not just pull out shot. It's impossible for Elbert not to understand this, but he still did it, and he did it so easily and freely. Phil Coulson didn't even see the muscles on his body tense at all. From the beginning to the end, Elbert's whole person was in a state of tension. A state of extreme relaxation. This is so suspicious. Definitely. Phil Coulson, are you saying that there is a force behind Elbert that can support his self-confidence, or that he has some means of predicting the future? Nick Fury used the tablet on the table to bring up Elbert. He had read the resume many times before, but all the information was correct and there wasn't much worth exploring. Even the patent applied for by Elbert was well-founded and there were no problems with it. Both are possible, but the former is unlikely. Phil Coulson did not answer immediately but paused, and after thinking carefully he said that there is a difference in self-confidence. Elbert's self-confidence is more like a kind of extreme self-identification. Self-confidence that can solve all problems. Phil Coulson, do you know what you're talking about? Do you know what it means if he can really predict the future? Nick Fury frowned and asked in a very stern tone, if anyone can really know whatever happens in the future, he must not be allowed to appear out of sight of SHIELD. Otherwise, if he is used properly, it will be a huge wave that will cause a world-class catastrophe. I understand the director, but other than that, I cannot understand the meaning of his actions and emotions. He has not experienced any professional training, and his physique is at the level of an ordinary person. But facing such a person, I am afraid it's like a sheep seeing a prehistoric Tyrannosaurus Rex. Phil Coulson let go of his right hand that he had been holding tightly since getting in the car, and his nails had even left traces of blood on his palm, but if not. Phil Coulson, he felt like he would be shaking all over and unable to speak a complete sentence. Only the pain could calm him down. Shortly after Phil Coulson left, the aftermath of Tony Stark's disappearance quickly subsided, and Stark Industries' stock price continued to rise. Everything was moving in the best direction, but beneath the surface calm, there were countless undercurrents. Tony and Obadiah, the uncle and nephew, began to have frequent contact and testing, and no one knew which one would bite the other's throat at the critical moment. Elbert's life has also returned to peace. He goes to Osborne Industrial twice a day to tease the poor guy Colin. He occasionally goes to the Imperial Cemetery to see how Raza, his younger brother, is doing. After all, he is one of his first subordinates, even if it's a bit minor, but if one day he is killed for no apparent reason, he will also be very sad. Since the last time, Norman seemed to have forgotten that there was such a person as him. He had no research tasks and had never talked to him. He only received salary and approved experimental applications. As long as the requirements were not excessive, everything was done. Green light all the way. And because Elbert's laboratory basically has no task pressure, Osborne Industries has become a place that everyone wants to work in. After all, you don't have to do any work and you can still get a first-class salary, and the benefits are natural. Elbert also refused to accept anyone who came, and as a result, Norman's secretary personally came to clean up the people. Otherwise, other research departments may not even be able to find a few assistants if this continues. As for these employees who actively joined, Elbert made a note for them. When he takes power in the future, these will be the first batch to be dismissed. Those who are really motivated, who will break their heads and go to him who has no future. The senior care sector is crowded. After paddling happily for more than 2 months, Elbert finally met Norman himself. Compared to a few months ago, he looked even more haggard. Retroproliferation was tormenting him more than he imagined. To be serious, this not only changed his appearance but also caused a slight deviation in his personality. If you could still feel the warmth from Norman before, now when you see Norman you will only feel a warmth. Cold. Chairman, Mr. Collins said you were looking for me. What's the matter? Elbert observed Norman's condition and had to say that it was very bad. If it continued, Norman wouldn't even last a month. Definitely, my dear Dr. Elbert, I neglected you for my research before. Now that my research has been completed, I can have a chat with you. After all, you have been with Osborne Industries for so long, and I don't seem to have gotten to know you well. As soon as Norman opened his mouth, Elbert felt something was wrong. Logically speaking, a person who has been tortured by illness for a long time would have a naturally distorted voice, but Norman was not only full of energy, but also a bit sharp. Chairman, your matters are more important. I'm having a good time at Osborne Industries, so you don't have to worry. Has the experiment been successful? Elbert would not believe such nonsense, but he did not expect that Norman would be so impatient that he directly injected the original strength hormone without any optimization. Most of his haggardness did not come from the body, but from the mind, and he got rid of the genetic disease. He is still suffering from the huge side effects caused by the strength hormone. Oh, that's good, that's good. But I heard that someone recently said that you are dissatisfied with my arrangement. Not only did you not come to work for a long time, but you also had close contacts with several directors. Norman said with a smile on his face, but there is no hint of joy, but a kind of cruelty that can lead to murder at any time. The chairman has misunderstood. Director Carroll and I have only met twice, and there is absolutely no intention of being dissatisfied with you. As Norman's research time lengthened, not much good news came, and Osborne Industrials, the directors, became uneasy. Nowadays, Osborne Industries is desperate. Once the research fails, they may be in disaster. Especially after the news of Norman fainting in the laboratory was exposed several times, this uneasiness became more intense. After buying off the deputy director of the laboratory, the directors' faces became very ugly. Norman's physical condition was no longer enough to support long-term research, and now Osborne Industries could not find a candidate to replace him. It means that the failure of the experiment is only a matter of time. No one wanted to watch themselves lying in the coffin little by little, so while Norman was still fighting the disease and doing his best to study human strength hormones, they began to frequently contact some capitalists, hoping to take advantage of the current good Osborne stock price. Sell it for a good price. After learning about this situation, Elbert naturally would not let it go. Carroll was one of the major shareholders he contacted. Osborne Industries is much smaller than Stark Industries, with a market value of approximately $30 billion, only 10% of Stark Industries. 1. And unlike Stark Industries, which is at its peak, Osborne is now in a precarious state. Even if the news has not yet spread, the stock price is still stable, but as an equity exchange, it is naturally impossible to be equivalent. Elbert used the 2% of Stark Industrial shares he had previously received to exchange a total of 30% of the shares from the directors headed by Carroll, which was already more than all other directors except Norman. The total number of shares in hand. With such a large proportion of shares, Elbert no longer cares about other directors. When he gets Norman's shares, he can absolutely control Osborne Industries without having to care about other people's opinions like Norman. But he didn't expect these directors to be so lax and let Norman hear the news. Looking at Norman's very playful eyes, Elbert was a little confused. If Norman attacked him directly in the office, should he fight back or kill him directly? This doesn't fit into his plan. So that's it. It seems that I misunderstood. Dr. Elbert, please go back first. I will go and talk to the directors. Norman didn't let Elbert struggle for long before he kicked him out and just turned around. At this time, Elbert clearly felt Norman's murderous intention. Luckily Norman is not crazy, otherwise I would have to fight back. With a sigh of relief, Elbert did not return to the laboratory but left Osborne Industries directly. Based on what Norman said just now, he definitely couldn't bear the murderous intention and would take action tonight, but he didn't know whether he was going to deal with those directors or Elbert first. Stop, this is my body. Just after Elbert left, Norman in the office covered his head in pain and yelled angrily. Yes, this is your body, but it also belongs to me. Stop struggling and obey. Do you want to watch these guys who betrayed you live freely? The next second, Norman's face softened and he said with a bewildered face. But there was some hesitation on Norman's face, but soon another consciousness took over. But what? They are going to sell Osborne Industries. Think about it carefully. If the company is gone, where will you go to do research? You won't survive much longer with human strength hormone, but what about Harry? Are you going to inject him with this semi-finished product? No, I will never inject Harry with it. An expression of extreme disgust appeared on Norman's face. After learning that he was not going to die soon, Norman desperately injected the most primitive version of the strengthening hormone. It gave Norman the power of Superman, but it had some terrible side effects. Moreover, it could not completely cure the family's genetic disease. Even the two were mixed together, making Norman almost become a madman. His remaining sense told Norman that it was best to keep Harry away from this thing. Then take action. Tonight is a good opportunity. We must not lose Osborne Industries, otherwise you and Harry will be dead. The bewitching voice gradually disappeared, and when Norman opened his eyes again, there was only gone crazy. He is no longer Norman Osborn but Green Goblin. Tonight, a sudden heavy rain broke the prosperity of New York. Even though modern civilization has been very developed, I believe that not many people will choose to go out in this kind of weather. Even the cameras at various intersections can't see through the rain curtain. The footage was captured clearly, so no one noticed that a man in weird clothes was riding a flight skateboard back and forth through the affluent areas of Manhattan. Whenever he falls, there will be a violent explosion, followed by a lot of crying and crazy laughter. This repeats, and when the police who received the warning arrive, they can only clean up the mess on the ground. No shadow of the other party was seen. Moreover, the other party committed crimes without any pattern at all. One moment he appeared in the east, the next moment he appeared in the north, and even the next time he appeared 20 meters away from the victim in the East District. The police were completely confused. They were so close, why didn't he commit the crime together here, but instead returned here after committing the crime on the other side? The police officers were exhausted in the heavy rain that night, but often they could only see the ruins left behind by the explosion. Some young police officers were unwilling to draw their guns and shoot in the air, but little did they know that the criminal they wanted to arrest was in the middle of the night, lying in the corner, holding his stomach and wailing. "Chairman, your taste is really not that good. This look is worse than a joker." Hearing the explosions one after another in the middle of the night, Albert knew that Norman was taking action. This was exactly what he wanted, so he came to Norman's door. At that time, Albert gave him a surprise. Ha, ha, the violent breathing made Norman's physical pain lessen slightly and his mood calmed down. He turned to look at Albert, who was fiddling with a pumpkin bomb. Norman's expression gradually changed. "Bitterly, I can't believe that you are actually a Superman. It seems you still have sense. How about we make a deal?" Albert put down the pumpkin bomb in his hand, walked to Norman, squatted down and asked, "Trade." "Ha ha ha ha, I'm like this now. What else can be traded, and what can you come up with that's worth trading for me? My life, if you want it, just take it." After hearing this, Albert Norman sneered. For him now, there are not many things worth caring about. "You definitely have a lot of things to trade. I need all the shares of Osborne Industries in your hands, as well as the design drawings of these gadgets." Albert pointed to the pumpkin bombs and skateboards on the ground. The bombs were forgotten, but the Green Goblin skateboard, but good thing, most speedsters have the same problem. Even if they can advance at superlight speed, they can't achieve true flight. Only a few lucky people can use the changes in the speed force to achieve the purpose of flight. Albert himself cannot fly, so the Green Goblin skateboard is very useful to him. "So you want these things? Yes, I can give them to you, but what can you give me? You can't give me anything." Norman still sneered. He should have seen Albert's ambition a long time ago, but not now. Late, he wouldn't give Albert anything, never. "You're right, I can't give you anything, but I can give Harry something." Albert smiled. He never thought of threatening Norman. This would not be effective, and since it was a transaction, something would naturally need to be paid. In Norman's opinion, it was an extremely precious thing. "Harry, what do you want to do to Harry?" Hearing his son's name, Norman seemed to regain all his strength in an instant. He supported his strong arms on the ground and pounced on Albert with the force of the rebound. However, the next moment he flew back at a faster speed. In front of Albert, he didn't even have the slightest ability to resist. "Don't get excited. I won't hurt Harry. Our business belongs to us and it won't affect our family." Albert held down Norman, who wanted to continue attacking, but the other party obviously didn't want to hear him continue talking and still struggled to stand. To get up, Albert had to corner him and rip off Norman's sleeves. Different from the previous green spots, after the injection of human strength hormone, Norman's arm skin became keratinized. Although it was indeed cured to a certain extent, this keratinization was also spreading. Even if there were no other side effects, this reaction sooner or later it will kill Norman. "Watch it carefully and then think about what I said." Albert gave Norman a smile and then the red arc flashed. Before Norman could react, the arc rushed into his arm crazily. And it quickly flowed through the body along the meridians and blood vessels, and the severe pain made Norman scream. This situation only lasted for 3 minutes. When everything subsided, Norman lay helplessly on the ground, looking at his arms in disbelief. The cuticle on them had completely fallen off, and the pain that had been accompanying him disappeared. For this moment, he had sacrificed so much that he could no longer bear it. After a long time, Norman raised his head and looked at Elbert. There was a fierce struggle in his heart, but with a sigh he still chose to compromise. Cure Harry and I will give you what you want. It's a wise choice. I won't touch your personal assets. Sign it now. Satisfied, Elbert took out a prepared equity transfer contract and placed it in front of Norman. Norman took a deep look at Elbert, then signed his name and wrote down the password to his personal safe. After that, he ignored Elbert and walked directly to the side, taking off the clothes that Elbert had taken off before. After putting on the equipment, he got back on his skateboard and flew into the heavy rainy night sky. His revenge was not over yet. Before dawn, he would make those who betrayed him pay the price. After collecting the contract, Elbert did not stop Norman from leaving. Even though his genetic disease was cured, the injection of human strength hormones had completely depleted Norman's body. He would not live long. Elbert could use the destructive power of the Speed Force, directly destroying the bad information in his genetic genes, and destroying the proliferating impurities would not replenish his vitality, and there was no need for him to do so. Watching Norman disappear in the heavy rain, Elbert suddenly felt a little melancholy. He wondered whether he had done something wrong, whether he should not be so unscrupulous for Osborne Industry. He found that he had changed. He was originally just a low-income man who could make ends meet. And now he has become a villain. Maybe I was born to be a bad guy, at least this way I can survive. Norman is just the beginning. In order to survive, Elbert will only create one tragedy after another, heroes will bleed and the world will fall. Elbert has no right to choose. Now he is a knife in the DC universe. He can only survive by completing his mission. As for what will happen after he completes his mission, who knows? Isn't that what people are like? Struggling in the face of slim hope, unwilling to give up and move forward even if they are bruised and bruised. The only thing that is still hopeful is that the world is not human after all, and there will be no tragedies like the birds disappearing, the good bows hiding, the cunning rabbits dying, and the lackeys being cooked. The weak consciousness born in the instinct of the world does not have so many twists and turns. It only has the simplest principle. If it contributes to the world, it will be rewarded, and if it exceeds the world, it will be punished. Otherwise, if the world consciousness is stronger and can self-examine, then Elbert will. The moment he saw Tony Stark, he was already dead. Tonight is destined to be a sleepless night. Some people have lost their lives and some people have a lot of money. As the sun rises in the morning, it dissipates the chill brought by and turns into a drizzle of light rain. The residents of Manhattan were frightened last night. Although the heavy rain blocked a certain amount of sound, it was difficult for them not to hear the explosion caused by Green Goblin at such a close distance, and the police cars patrolling the entire Manhattan area almost all night showed the seriousness of the matter. S*X. Sergeant Lois went one by one to reassure these frightened residents, telling them not to worry and that the Manhattan Police Department would protect their safety. However, no matter how clever the reassurances were, they all seemed so insignificant in the face of the ruins that could be seen everywhere. The Green Goblin was too crazy. It flew around the entire Manhattan residential area in one night. No matter where you lived, you could always see the explosion debris not far away after opening the door. Damn it, don't let me know which B******** D did it, or I'll put a bullet in his Sergeant Bloise's assistant cursed the guy who caused the sabotage, but the experienced sergeant could see it. When he came out, his old friend for many years was a little scared. The fear in his eyes could not be hidden from others. But he was not the only one who was afraid. Lois looked at the colleagues around him. Most of them had panic on their faces. How had they ever seen such a scene before? It looked like the wreckage after being bombarded by a howitzer. This was not them. They only wore what the police with 38 caliber pistols can handle is that they don't know that this is just the beginning. The curtain of the era has begun, and the wave that follows will smash the world to pieces. Yesterday morning, a large number of explosions occurred in Manhattan. Dozens of high-level buildings were affected and there were hundreds of casualties. What caused this disaster? Look at these devastated houses. Can you believe this is happening in Manhattan? Where is the government to protect people? The biggest terrorist attack in history is war coming. The spokesperson of the Ministry of National Defense made a speech early this morning. He will never condone anyone related to this attack. Special departments have been involved in the investigation. The next day, newspapers, TV, and every news media were frantically reporting on the bombing that occurred in Manhattan yesterday. There was no way to hide this matter. The scope of damage caused by Green Goblin was too wide. If you want to blocking news would require quarantining the entire residential area of Manhattan, which is clearly impossible. therefore with the speed of the reporter from the United States, which is comparable to that of a speedster. Almost before the police chief had figured out how to submit his resignation letter to the superiors, the overwhelming reports flooded his office, and the pressure brought by it was so great that it almost overwhelmed him. This poor guy simply swallowed the gun himself. After all, it was better to go directly to see God than to stay with the criminals he had captured for the rest of his life. Remarkably, two agents claiming to be from the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Bureau rescued the police chief and fully intervened in the investigation of the terrorist attack. Yes, this incident has been characterized as a well-planned terrorist attack against America, because anyone who sees the kind of destruction scene that completely destroys a house will not think that it was caused by just a few random people. To the fist-file-size pumpkin bomb, this is obviously a conspiracy that has been planned for many years by a well-hidden organization. As for why most of the victims are shareholders of Osborne Industries, is there any connection between this incident and Osborne Industries? No one has thought of this, or some people have made this issue a blind spot. After all, compared to a terrorist attack, the danger comes from internal topics, which are more likely to cause people to panic. Definitely, this incident has nothing to do with Osborne Industries on the surface, but secretly, a series of departments, including SHIELD, have extended their tentacles into Osborne Industries. The impact of this attack is so bad, it is not only a fishing boat for the people, but more importantly, it is a complaint from Manhattan residents. Unlike ordinary people, those who can buy a house in Manhattan must be at least a millionaire. One day, such a group of people suddenly discovered that the government's so-called security guarantees were just like paper. Their anger reached at its peak. Countless complaints of dissatisfaction have already filled the government's mailboxes. If they cannot get a satisfactory answer, America's tax revenue may suffer this year. Therefore, Congress urgently needed an explanation. It happened that the status of decedent gave them a good investigation gap. After a little investigation, they found out about the directors of Osborne Industries who were selling their stocks aggressively. Soon the matter became clear before their eyes. Obviously, it was Norman Osborne, the chairman of Osborne Industries, who was dissatisfied with the director's betrayal and planned this horrific murder. Needless to say, all kinds of monsters gathered at Norman's doorstep, wanting to be the first to kill him. Catching Norman, a heinous gangster, is definitely an opportunity to rise to prominence, but as soon as they opened the door, they were all stunned. Norman was dead. Last night, Norman's family hereditary disease broke out. He survived until this morning and passed away before the ambulance came, leaving only his only son Harry, who was still in junior high school. So the detectives, who had made a futile effort, looked as depressed as if they had eaten a mouthful of shit. They wanted to find evidence of Norman's crime, but in the eyes of the excited capitalists in Manhattan, they had to investigate a man who died of illness. Capitalists are undoubtedly seeking death. Regardless of whether Norman did this or not, if the problem is thrown at Norman now, then it will obviously be regarded by the group of capitalists as the government's perfunctory treatment of them, and that the shit basin will be detained without any investigation. Norman, the deadman, would not only dissatisfy them, but even anger them, making it even more difficult to end it. If this incident had happened in a slum, or as in the original movie within a small area of the fair, it might not be as difficult to deal with as it is now, but it happened in Manhattan, directly threatening most of the rich safety. Without the support of these capitalists, let alone the president, the entire government system is in danger of collapse. They can ignore the vast majority of capitalists, but they dare not challenge the anger of the entire capital system. During this period, the whole of Manhattan and even New York was turned upside down. Each resident was interrogated an average of 3 times a day. Those with criminal records and some guys with less than clean foundations became like salesmen, constantly being questioned. Check and pay attention. Although not much useful information has been obtained, the public security environment in New York and several nearby cities is quite clear. Even in the dark alleys at midnight, no gangster dares to go for a stroll, for fear that he will be imprisoned the next moment. He caught the man who ran away and threw him into the police station. Due to the pressure from the top, some violent methods in the police department were lifted. Once caught, they will be regarded as a model of not letting go of the wrongdoer. Don't think about it without peeling off a layer of skin. For a time, New York, everyone in the surrounding gang-related forces is in danger and dare not show their faces at all. At Norman's funeral, only a few acquaintances were paying their respects. The entire Manhattan area seemed to have entered a state of mourning in the past few days. There were multiple funerals to be held every day and many people were tired. Harry, my condolences. Albert placed the white roses he brought in front of the portrait, turned to look at the man with a sad face but holding back tears and touched his head. Are you Uncle Albert? Harry's body stiffened. It was obvious that he didn't like others touching his head, but he did not avoid it. Instead, he asked, Thank you, Father told me before he left that you gave him a lot of help. Big help. Really? I only did some trivial things. Hearing Harry's words, Albert was slightly startled, and then realized that this was Norman paving the way for him. Even though he had a strong hatred for Albert, Norman knew that if Harry showed his hatred in front of him, he would most likely die. So he chose to conceal the truth and portray Albert as a man who tried his best to help him. People and may also have instilled in Harry the idea of trusting Albert. With these, Harry will not be opposed to Albert and his safety is guaranteed, and Albert really needs Harry. Norman sees it very clearly. After he completes the attack, Osborne Industries is bound to become the target of public criticism. If Albert directly takes out Norman's equity, he will definitely be listed as the #1 suspect. After all, Norman, both the director and the director, are dead. As the ultimate beneficiary, Albert has a hard time avoiding suspicion, but it's different with Harry. As long as Harry cooperates, he can completely announce that he has inherited his father's inheritance, and because he is too young, he supports Albert, the second largest shareholder, to take charge of Osborne Industries. This is one of the few invisible things. After all, the other shares in Albert's hands had files before the incident, and they were clear and visible to the public, and they were not afraid of any investigation. In this way, the result will not change, but Albert will avoid the trouble of being investigated, and Harry will not be targeted by Albert. Even because of his identity, he has to protect Harry from harm. Otherwise, the fishing boat may become in order to embezzle the company. The second largest shareholder of Osborne Industries hired a murderer to kill the orphan of the former chairman. Norman believed that this was not what Albert wanted to see, so Harry was safe. You are so humble. Dad told me that if it weren't for you, he might have died a few months ago. Thank you very much. Harry bowed deeply to Albert. A few nights ago, Norman was full of he returned home with a pale face, woke up Harry who was still sleeping, and told Harry that he was going to die. At that moment, Harry felt as if his world was about to collapse. Later, Norman talked to him a lot, saying how much he loved Harry. His indifference was just to make Harry better. He stayed away from home all year round to solve the family's genetic disease. Now he is suffering from the disease. He was going to die and he didn't want Harry to die either. Harry remembered crying. This was the first time in his life that Norman had confided in him, but he would never see Norman again. Then Harry learned Albert's name from Norman. Norman told him that Albert would be the only person he could rely on, and he should not trust anyone else, especially those distant cousins who seemed kind. Norman talked a lot until the morning star rose in the sky, and he bid farewell to this world completely. Harry lay on Norman's body and cried bitterly, saying that he would never disobey any of his requests again, but Norman could not hear it. Harry, good boy, I will take good care of you for Mr. Norman. Albert did not continue to defend himself. He knew that in Norman's description he had become Harry's new pillar of support. If he rejected him, then Harry would it may go to the extreme, like the Harry in the comics, becoming an addict and entering the grave of life on the road of depravity. Father asked me to listen to you. Harry had no objection to this. Norman had arranged everything before his death and Harry chose to follow his last wish. After Norman's funeral, Osborne Industries was anxiously waiting to welcome a new chairman. With Harry's support, Albert succeeded in becoming the helmsman of Osborne Industries with an absolute advantage, and no other shareholders could restrict him. Subsequently, a group of old employees were laid off, and more young people entered Osborne Industries. Many people think that Albert is so eager to clean up his predecessor's team that it is a bit unkind. Even based on the polymer materials previously invented by Albert, Osborne Industries is likely to change its business direction in his hands, from biotechnology to materials technology. Few people are worried. There are not many biotechnology companies, because once the research reaches a certain level, it may involve some ethical issues, so it is difficult for ordinary people to get involved. There is still room for survival in this industry in America, but materials science is different, so let's not mention it. There are many high-end, mid-range, and low-end companies. If Osborne Industries steps in, judging from Albert's previous results, life for many people will be difficult. But soon they no longer worried. Albert attended the press conference and stated that Osborne Industries would not change its business direction. He would inherit the legacy of former chairman Norman Osborne and continue to tackle biotechnology. After the press conference, he met with the military FANG's representative, General Duncan, and the two sides had friendly negotiations. Since then, Albert's first small goal has been completed. The next step is to see how to stir up the situation and make the world different because of him. Tuk tuk. Please come in. Albert heard someone knocking on the door outside and said without raising his head, Osborne Industries has undergone a major change. All things need to be adjusted. Before the responsibilities of each department are clearly defined, many things require Albert's personal intervention. So he is still quite busy now, but it will get better after a while. Some initial confusion is normal. Hello, Chairman Albert, I am. The other party opened the door and walked into Albert's office. A gentle voice sounded to him. Albert looked up and looked at the middle-aged man with glasses approaching. The other party was a gentle scholar. Temperament, but many people will feel a pity when they first see him, because such a gentle person has lost something very important to many people, and there is nothing under his right sleeve. Dr. Curtis Connors, one of the leading authorities in the field of genetic reptiles, I am very glad that you can join Osborne Industries. Albert took the initiative to stand up and shake hands with Connors. This is one of the few people who are willing to join Osborne Industries and are worthy of their reputation. As an authoritative scientist, after all, Albert has not established enough prestige, and many scientists who have received invitations have chosen to continue to wait and see. The conditions proposed by Osborne Industries are very generous, and I really need a place to conduct my research. I am very grateful that you allow me to continue research in my field instead of letting me handle slicing work like other companies. Speaking of his previous experience, Connors was a little helpless. There were not many big companies in the biological field, so it was difficult to find one that suited him. He was not a rich man himself, so he could not afford research expenses. This is definitely true. I firmly believe that it is best to make the best use of everything. Doctor, you should do what you are best at instead of wasting time on trivial matters. Connors, or the future Dr. Lizard Man, he does have considerable talent. Speaking of which, his research results are of the same type as Norman's. They both have effects, but the side effects are equally obvious. When I heard you say that, it seems that I did not make the wrong choice, Connors said happily. He was a little nervous before, but now Albert's words are undoubtedly a shot in the arm. This is the approval document regarding the establishment of a laboratory. Sign your name on it, Dr. Connors, and you can go to the research department to select assistants. Now Osborne doesn't have many things, it just has many people. Albert handed an authorization document to Connors. During this period, Osborne recruited a large number of people. Although there were only a few top doctors, there were enough researchers at the grassroots level. Even though some of them may be mixed, I believe they will be there soon. Eliminate those who are not qualified. Connors signed the contract with some excitement and then went to visit his future laboratory under the guidance of his secretary. Albert was a little worried. Norman was dead, but his research could not stop. This was a collaboration with the military. The basis is that just the huge amounts of side effects of the original potion won't satisfy them. But the problem is that Albert can't find anyone who can replace Norman to lead the research. Several PhDs he's optimistic about have either joined other companies or declined his invitation. He probably won't be able to find a suitable candidate in a short time. People. Myth. Caroline, help me pay attention to a company called Pioneer Technology. The founder is Alderez Killian. It is also a biotechnology company and may also be involved in the military industry. Picked up the phone in the office, Albert thought of a solution to the problem. Speaking of human body strengthening, we have to mention Extremis in the movie. Although it has extremely high requirements for the recipient, once the injection fails, the human body will instantly turn into a high-explosive bomb. But there is no doubt that compared to Nox Man's human strength hormone, Extremis is undoubtedly more powerful. Perhaps if he can acquire Pioneer technology, Albert will have a way to solve the problem or even combine the two to create a more effective product. And, as one of Iron Man's stumbling blocks, Alderez Killian is also what Albert needs. If the goal can be solved with money, that would be great. If it is not possible, then you have to find another way. Okay, Chairman, if I find anything, I will contact you as soon as possible. The beautiful secretary with long blonde hair replied seriously. As Albert's new secretary, Caroline has her own pride, and she is also very grateful to Albert for giving her such an opportunity, so no matter how trivial it is, she will try her best to handle it. The reason why Elbert is not overwhelmed by documents is due to Caroline's ability. After making the call, Elbert leaned back in his chair. It was not that he was tired from dealing with Osborne Industries, but that he needed to adapt to the changes in the Speed Force. Whether it was the Empire Cemetery or the attack on Manhattan, or Osborne, the change of ownership of the industry brought greater strength to Elbert. If someone can keep up with Elbert's speed, they will find that his body occasionally flickers and blurs for a moment after lying down. This is the high-speed afterimage produced when he cannot control his speed. Although it does not have much impact on normal life, but Elbert discovered that this sudden increase in strength without any training is likely to have an impact on the future if he is not properly adapted to it. It will even turn into an uncontrollable mountain. He used the Speed Force to move forward, but the Speed Force pushed him forward. One day, the mountain became too big, and Elbert couldn't adapt to its push. He might be smashed to death by it, so now he spends some time every day sorting it out, but today it took a little longer. Elbert opened his eyes with some confusion, only to find that his office had undergone a strong distortion at some point. It was not a destructive distortion, but a shift in space, just like inside a rotating Rubik's Cube. The transformation is the same. The moment he realized what had happened, the deflection of space had been completed. All the lines were connected together and collapsed towards the same point. Finally, a circular passage was formed, with a portal with a ring of fire at the end. Is this an invitation to me? We'll meet sooner or later, so let's talk now. Looking at the sealed space, Elbert walked towards the only way out and crossed the space door. Hello, I am the magician Ancient One, and I take the liberty to invite you. In the luxuriously decorated room, Elbert saw a woman wearing a white robe with no hair. The simple dress gave her a unique look. Oppressive force and various mysterious energies surrounded her. It was the aura of magic that acted on her in a way that ordinary people could not understand. If you knew it was presumptuous, you shouldn't have invited me like this, powerful magician. Is there anything you need me to do? When Elbert entered the room, the space door behind him closed automatically. Elbert didn't care much about this. If the Ancient One didn't want to let him through, and there was no use leaving the door open. You have a very powerful power in your body, young man, but you seem to be unable to completely control it. This is very dangerous. The Ancient One's gaze seemed to penetrate Elbert's body and reach his root essence. For a moment, he felt that he was standing naked in front of the Ancient One, and any disguise would be of no use to him. Magician, you are even more rude. Although you are very powerful, peeking into privacy without consent is not a commendable thing. Fortunately, this feeling only lasted for a moment, and the next moment Elbert's body surface flashed a red arc of electricity was an instinctive reaction of the Speed Force. It even wanted to break away from Elbert's control and rush towards the Ancient One in front of her, as if there was something she needed to get. There is indeed something she must get, but not now. Elbert has restrained the Speed Force that is about to break out of his body. What is worth mentioning is that although the Speed Force in Elbert's body has increased rapidly in a short period of time, he has no control over the Speed Force. The constrained ability has also been enhanced. It is as if his authority is getting closer to the Speed Force, and he has been able to initially restrain it. As long as the Speed Force does not exceed his limit too much, this controllability will be infinitely close to the peak, like an arm using a finger. I apologize for this, but the power in your body is more dangerous than I imagined. Ancient One apologized without sincerity and then looked at Elbert more intently, as if he wanted to see through his essence again, but unfortunately she failed this time. That's my business, and I'm confident that I can restrain it. If magician is all you want, I don't think we have anything to talk about. Elbert's face turned ugly, and he turned around and looked around the room, the exit, but unfortunately he didn't even see a window. It was obvious that the Ancient One did not intend to let him leave until the outcome of the conversation came out. No, my point of view is exactly the opposite. It's best not to leave here until you learn to control your power. Ancient One shook her head and said solemnly, but her words did not mean the slightest bit of advice. You want to imprison me? Elbert's eyes gradually became dangerous. He thought the Ancient One came to him just for a nutritious chicken soup discussion, but he didn't expect that she would not play cards according to the rules as soon as she came up. As one of the few people on the Blue Star who can pose a threat to Elbert, the Ancient One has always been something he is afraid of. He does not want to confront the Ancient One unless it is absolutely necessary, but now it seems that the Ancient One has a very tough attitude. If Elbert does not stay, the war will break out sooner or later. No, I'm just teaching you how to control your own power. Perhaps feeling Elbert's anger, the Ancient One raised her eyebrows slightly, and the magical movement covered her with an invisible armor. Is there any difference? I don't want to stay here. Elbert didn't know why Ancient One had to stay by himself. After all, he was not the only one with special powers. He had never seen Ancient One have any record of forcibly retaining people, or what did Ancient One see? This is not impossible. It is said that the Ancient One is connected to eternity, one of the 5 gods. It is not difficult to understand what she knows. It seems that I need to use some special means. Don't blame me, child, I am doing it for your own good. The Ancient One took a deep look at Elbert, and then her whole body sank into the ripples of space. The next moment she appearing behind Elbert, the magic blade slashed towards the back of Elbert's neck. Although he did not feel the killing intent, Elbert didn't want to be slashed, so he moved. Invisible ripples rippled in the space. This was the first time Elbert ran after gaining strength. The red lightning only stayed in place. There was only a moment of thought, and then Ancient One was hit hard on the bookshelf behind it as if it was hit by a heavy hammer. Unexpected speed, but not enough. Elbert did not stop running because he knew very well that just one attack would not cause any harm to Ancient One. He even felt that if Ancient One wanted to, she could even dodge that attack. After an attack, sure enough, the Ancient One's voice reached his ears as usual. It's hard for me to keep up with your speed, but I can slow you down, kid. Don't underestimate a magician. The next moment, the space changes. He sits on the ground and travels 80,000 miles a day. Thousands of sonic speeds are in vain. The entire space flows backwards behind Elbert at an incredible speed. In one breath, he should have run tens of kilometers, but in fact, his footsteps standing still, Ancient One's blade was already close in front of her eyes. With a wave of her hand, the blade turned into a whip of light and wrapped around Elbert, trying to capture him first. No, I have never underestimated you, Ancient One magician. Seeing that the light whip was about to wrap around his body, Elbert's eyes remained unmoved. What he hated most about the Ancient One was this ability to force space in the opposite direction of Elbert's running. Moving forward directly destroyed his super speed, but this did not mean that Elbert was powerless to resist. The red lightning burst out instantly, and the Ancient One's expression suddenly changed. He wanted to retract the light whip, but he couldn't keep up with the speed of the red lightning. The next moment, the space barrier shattered, and Elbert had already crossed the range of the light whip. But he didn't stopping, taking advantage of the moment when Ancient One's old power was exhausted and new power was not yet generated. Elbert's red lightning scraped everything in the room. A large number of burned formations were activated for a while, but they soon exploded. It seemed like there was a fireworks show, which was really beautiful. After destroying all the magic circles in the room, Elbert stopped and looked at Ancient One. Her expression finally changed, but she still didn't say anything. As she waved her hand, the space flowed backwards again and countless different things appeared. The protrusion of the rule blocks the space around Elbert. How long can you hold on? Faced with this more dangerous situation, Elbert was not worried at all. Ancient One is very powerful, but to achieve the purpose of limiting his speed, it takes more than 1 or 2 points of magic power. Even if Ancient One can absorb the energy of the dark dimension, it cannot be done casually. Therefore, if you want to punish Elbert, it is necessary to have an auxiliary magic circle fixed in the room. This can greatly reduce the pressure on Ancient One. But now that the magic circle has been destroyed, Ancient One must rely on its own strength if it wants to continue fighting. Elbert knew very well that even if Ancient One had a rich reserve of magic power, it would not last long. It's been long enough. Your speed is dangerous, but for a magician, speed sometimes doesn't cause trouble. Elbert was silent. This is true for a magician like Ancient One. She doesn't even need anything to cast a spell. In the process, if the opponent is replaced by Doctor Strange, Elbert is sure to send him to see God before he casts the spell, but Ancient One is different. This is the gap. So the ensuing battle fell into a cycle. The Ancient One consumed magic power to create a space corridor to obliterate Elbert's speed. However, before her attack arrived, Elbert's speed force had already destroyed the power of the fixed space, and so on. The two seemed to be at a stalemate, but at the same time they both knew that the other party had other methods that they had not used, especially Ancient One. Until now, she had not used a fatal attack. She did not seem to want to kill Elbert. She was just like her, as he said, Elbert should be kept here to teach him how to control his power. This battle gradually became boring. If it weren't for the butcher's knife hanging above his head that would be smashed down when the time comes, Elbert really wanted to stay, but unfortunately time did not allow it. Who knew the Ancient One wanted to keep him? How long, maybe a month or two, doesn't matter. In a year or two, Elbert will be ready to collect the body. Zizzy Tilda the electric light jumped, and Elbert once again broke away from the shackles of the Ancient One. But this time he did not stop, but continued to run towards the Ancient One, the speed force gathered in his hands. Now that the Ancient One has made up his mind, then you can only use enough power to threaten her. Give up, kid, you can't attack me. Seeing Elbert rushing over at high speed, the Ancient One shook his head, and suddenly a sense of space confusion came, and everything in front of him turned into illusory and invisible things and they escaped. It has entered another dimension, and ordinary attacks cannot cause damage to it at all. This is not necessarily the case. Ancient One Magician, one last warning, let me go. Standing one step ahead of the space chaos, Elbert's expression was unprecedentedly serious. What does time and space mean in front of the Speed Force? Elbert doesn't yet have the ability to transcend time, and space is also a constraint for him, but for the original Speed Force neither is enough. So, Speed Force Extreme Spear. The Speed Force was controlled and transformed into an entity. Before, Elbert could control the Speed Force to leave the body and attack, but now he has been able to fix it into a certain form. This blow will do nothing. Unbreakable Ancient One, I declare that this strike will penetrate everything, no matter when or where you are choose. At this moment, the Speed Force was like the mighty thunder of heaven, which made Ancient One's expression change. Her expression also showed a horrified change for the first time. At first, she didn't think Elbert could pose any threat to her, but now she knew I was wrong. A vague sense of death touched her spiritual sense. There was no doubt that if Elbert had shot that shot, she would die. No matter where she is hiding, even if she uses the Eye of Agamotto to reverse time, she cannot change the fact that she was hit. In all known and unknown time and space, her existence has been locked by the ultimate gun in Elbert's hand. Must die. So the Ancient One is silent. Is it necessary to fight Elbert to the death because of this? Yes and no. Previously, she thought Elbert was just a young man who had mastered dangerous abilities, but now her evaluation of Elbert has risen enough to threaten the existence of Blue Star. Not everyone can ignore the advantage of speed like her. But Ancient One doesn't want to fight to the death with Elbert here, because she has far more enemies than just one Elbert. If it was just a trauma, the Ancient One would definitely choose to continue without any hesitation. Even if Elbert could not be changed, it could eliminate a hidden danger for Blue Star, but if it was death, the Ancient One was not afraid of death. She had lived long enough. But once she dies, those beings that were blocked by her will come out and Blue Star may not survive again. You can leave. I hope you don't use this power to do anything else. Otherwise, even if you can kill me, I can also kill you. Ancient One opened the space door, but she still chose to compromise. In order to protect Blue Star, she had compromised many times and even actively absorbed the power of the dark dimension, so this was not too difficult for her to accept. Definitely, Ancient One Magician, before this I didn't cause any large-scale damage, right? Seeing the Ancient One's compromise, Elbert took back the Speed Force with satisfaction and replied obediently. The Ancient One did not comment on this, watched him return to the office of Osborne Industries. It was so dangerous this time. We almost died together. After returning to his office, Elbert lay on the armchair with an exhausted expression. He and Ancient One had been facing each other in the cyclic space for who knows how long. In that kind of it was as if he had returned to the previous second, and the concept of time was a bit blurry, but Elbert knew that he did not have much physical strength left. If the time went on, he might not even be able to get the ultimate weapon. Fortunately, the Speed Force is indeed powerful enough. If that blow is fired, it will directly penetrate time and space and crucify Ancient One. This is his strongest method now. If it is ineffective, he can only declare surrender and wait for death. Fortunately, Ancient One's her sense of responsibility is as strong as Elbert expected. In order to protect her, she will choose to compromise, even if it may lead to the return of the tiger. After this stop, Elbert decided to be more low-key, at least not to do everything by himself, otherwise the Ancient One would be really pressed for help. Elbert really had no good way to deal with it. He could kill the Ancient One, but as the Ancient One said just like that, there are also many ways to kill Elbert. The simplest one is that Ancient One can directly open an ultra-long-distance space door and send Elbert directly to outer space. Or even go to the extreme and throw him into a fixed star or a black hole. He will finish the game in minutes. No matter how powerful the speedster is, one basic thing cannot be changed. They are all human beings and possess most of the weaknesses of human beings. It's just that under normal circumstances, ordinary methods will not work against speedsters, but Ancient One definitely has ways to target these weaknesses. In the same way, other powerful spellcasters may also threaten Elbert, as long as they can be faster than Elbert. but it's a little weird that the Ancient One came to me. She's not such a nosy guy. Albert chewed a few chocolate energy bars to regain his strength, touched the bar and thought about the problem. Ancient One, as the Sorcerer Supreme and the Asgardian of Blue Star, usually pays little attention to the internal disputes of Blue Star. As long as she is not preparing for a nuclear war to destroy the world, she basically ignores it. Even if she discovers that Albert has powers that she does not recognize, she will not pay attention to them. She shouldn't be so forceful to keep him. There are so many weird powers on Blue Star. If Ancient One takes care of everything, how will she have the time to protect Blue Star? But to say that the Ancient One knows the Speed Force, haha, then I am afraid that even death can't stop the Ancient One from wanting to kill him. What's more, from the beginning to the end, Albert didn't feel the Ancient One's murderous intention. This matter is revealed. Looks a bit weird. Click. Just as Albert was thinking, the door of the office was opened from the outside. Looking at Albert sitting on the chair, Caroline was obviously stunned for a moment. Chairman, you are still here. I came here 2 days ago. I didn't see you for the first time, so I thought you had left. Oh really? I went out just now. What's the matter? Albert looked at the watch on his wrist. Almost 5 hours had passed since he left. No wonder Caroline felt that he had left. Yes, Chairman, I have found the pioneer technology you mentioned. Caroline, who acted very efficiently, was stunned for a moment before coming back to her senses. She ably took out a printed document and placed it on Albert's desk. So fast? Albert raised his eyebrows. Pioneer technology should be unknown now. Before Extremis was successfully developed, no one was optimistic about Killian's plan. It's like this. In the process of repurchasing the shares of deceased directors, there were many people competing with us, including Pioneer Technology. However, due to lack of financial resources, they quickly withdrew from the competition. Caroline's the answer made Albert nod his head clearly. The feeling was that Pioneer Technology had bumped into him. Killian really had a big heart. He dared to take advantage of it at this time. Does Pioneer Technology have sufficient research funds? There is not much information about Pioneer Technology. As Albert thought, it is not well known among similar companies. Although it is also involved in some military industries, it is basically Hammer Industries without military support. It wants products but has no products. If there are no channels, even though the profits of the military industry are there, they can still make money, but no one regards them as individuals. Secondly, there is no information about Extremis in Pioneer Technology's information, and similar biotechnologies are not indicated. It seems that Killian did not mean to put these on the surface, but think about it, he was a fan of Tony Stark back then. Brother, in the end, he was forced to let go by Tony, and the cool breeze blew on the roof all night, and he wanted to die. He would definitely not expose this kind of thing openly, but would hold back his energy. First he perfected the desperate potion, and then he became a blockbuster. Just like in the movie, he made big news as soon as he showed up. Chairman, do you want to send someone to contact Pioneer Technology? Caroline asked aloud as Albert covered the information. No need. I'm going to directly acquire Pioneer Technology. Albert immediately made up his mind. Pioneer Technology's market value is quite low compared to Osborne Industries, so it would be better to just swallow the cooperation. After all, Osborne Industry is inherited from the Norman family. Although it declined in the middle, Norman pulled it back and is still thriving. Pioneer Technology was established in less than 10 years. While it has no major products, it also has to expand its market share. A sum of money was used to research Extremis, so it's surprising that the market value is so high. While Albert was planning to take over Pioneer Technology, the internal conflicts in Stark Industries were intensifying. Now it was almost coming to an end. Ever since he knew that Obadiah wanted to kill him, Tony had not been out alone, and use your own advantages to win over a large number of shareholders. Since Obadiah wants to get Stark Industries, Tony will clear him out first. In less than 3 months, Obadiah's power in Stark Industries has been squeezed to the extreme. If he didn't also own a large number of shares, he might not even be able to get in now. Mr. Obadiah, this is today's document. Daniel's hands were trembling a little. These days, he had seen with his own eyes how Obadi fell from the clouds to the bottom, so he also knew that there was no expression on Obadi's face. There was so much terrifying anger hidden underneath. He was afraid that Obadiah would suddenly burst out and send him to hell. Put it on the table and you can go out. Obadiah turned his back to Daniel and looked at the traffic outside the building, saying lifelessly, Yes. Daniel felt like he was amnesty. He didn't dare to stay any longer and trotted out of the office. He met the HR manager within 2 steps. Daniel quickly walked over and whispered, Obadiah still didn't say anything, just it's like giving up. Well done, continue to report on Obadiah's daily situation and Mr. Stark will give you the due reward. The HR manager patted Daniel on the shoulder and encouraged him, but Daniel just smiled. Even if he did, although he was an informant, he would not have any chance to turn around in the future. At most, he would be transferred to a remote department and spend the rest of his life living as a fool. The HR manager was not in the mood to pay attention to Daniel's mood. He walked around in circles twice before picking up the phone and dialing, "Mr. Stark. We have tried our best to squeeze out Obadiah as you requested, but he seems to I don't care at all. I suspect he may take some abnormal measures, so you must be careful." "Got it." Tony closed the phone but did not think about Obadiah's question. Instead, he looked at the exquisite and complex robotic arm in front of him and made final adjustments. "JARVIS, has the compatibility been adjusted?" "Yes, sir. After 13,000 correction experiments, the Mark I has been debugged." "Very well, let's start getting dressed." Tony walked up to the round stage in the center of the room very excitedly. With the sound of a mechanical combination, the JARVI's remote-controlled robotic arm began to put parts on Tony's body one by one, just like putting on clothes. Various parts and iron pieces were placed on every part of Tony by JARVIS in the most fitting way. Everything was completed in just a few seconds. As the last cold mask fell, Tony had completed the transformation. From now on, he became Iron Man. No, it should be said that he had everything of Iron Man except his heart. He is still the same Stark, and his hatred for Obadiah makes him ignore some things. Once the hatred disappears, he may turn back to the Playboy at any time, even if he has made a steel battle suit. "Open the skylight and conduct a flight test." Tony's voice was heard through the steel. Although this was completely unnecessary, JARVIS could complete his orders through the built-in microphone, but Tony even added a certain speaker to it. "Because it's cool, Tony Stark's original words. Sir, I must remind you that although the test results are very good, I still do not recommend going directly to high altitude for the first test flight. For your safety, we should start with a low-altitude flight. There is no need for low-altitude testing. I am Tony Stark, the greatest genius of this century. I believe in my work, it is perfect. Now open the skylight." Tony stroked the breastplate full of science fiction atmosphere, but it could be used as his when his steel fingers touched the reactor on his chest. His face turned ferocious for a moment. "Yes, sir." JARVI's, unable to resist Tony's command, opened the panoramic sunroof. Tony turned on the jetting devices on the soles of his feet and the palms of his hands. After adapting to the balance while hovering half a meter above the ground, he suddenly increased the push force, and suddenly the powerful power provided by nuclear energy pushed him high into the sky. The energy output level is normal and the pressure is normal. "Sir, it is recommended to increase the right wing jet power by 0.3%. This will help you maintain balance." "Very good, continue to monitor everything and remind me if there are any problems." Tony increased the jet power of the right wing, according to the improvement of JARVIS. Suddenly, the steel battle suit, which was still a little crooked, flew in a straight line towards the sea. "Start taking off and check the pressure of each part." After Tony Stark crossed the horizontal plane, he quickly began to rise, 100 meters, 500 meters, 1,000 meters. As the distance increased, there was a certain shape-shifting in the parts of each part of the battle suit, but they were all within a tolerable range. But as he continued to pull up, Tony discovered a very serious problem. Water droplets began to condense on the surface of the battle suit and quickly condensed into ice. Seeing this, Tony Stark not only did not stop but accelerated upward. He wanted to see where the limits are. "Sir, if this continues, the body will be frozen. I know, prepare backup energy for me, be ready to heat the surface of the body and restart the system at any time." When it climbed to the extreme height, the steel battle suit had been frozen into a pile and began to fall back quickly. But at this moment, the steel battle suit, the surface of the battle suit began to heat up, and through the heating of the backup energy, the ice began to melt. Soon, Tony regained control of the battle suit, opening his arms to the sun, as if embracing the world. Thanks to the new insulation material provided by Osborne Industries, the battle suit is finally completed. In the office, Obadiah unconsciously opened and closed the flip-top of the lighter repeatedly in his hand. This was a gift given to him by Tony a few years ago, St. DuPont. Its biggest feature is that the sound of opening and closing it is quite clear and sweet. Turning the office chair in a circle on his tiptoes, Obadiah looked at the documents on the table that Daniel had just sent over. There were only 3 thin copies. Without looking at Obadiah, he knew that there were only some insignificant things on them. There are mountains of documents on his desk, which is trouble and a symbol of power. Now that he is in decline in Stark Industries, the people who are still willing to follow him are like a few documents. Daniel is working for Tony. Obadiah knows this very well, but he does not have an attack because it is meaningless. Meaning, if he can't bring down Tony, all his actions will have no effect. Obadiah always believed that he was the core of Stark Industries and that he was the most important person. But when Tony launched a counterattack, he realized that he was terribly wrong. Even though Tony had never managed the company, those directors still did not the slightest bit of hesitation was on Tony's side. Obadiah might be able to use interests to unite the directors to restrain Tony. But once Tony revealed his absolute hostility to Obadiah, the whole situation changed. Because Tony Stark was the core of that interest, and now Tony has no idea of closing the weapons department. And the conflict with the directors is even smaller and Obadiah. He is indeed a very good president, but that's it. There are many candidates who can replace him, and it is in the interest of all directors to kick him out. Tony is a playboy and will not spend too much time managing the company. With Obadiah, they can arrange for their own people to enter the company at the right time and reap benefits for themselves. Tony, why can't you disappear? I gave you many opportunities, but you pushed me into a blind corner. Obadiah slammed the metal cover of the lighter, and huge amounts of force even caused cracks in the connection. But no one knew that Obadiah, who looked quite bloated, actually had such strength. Did he? The mobile phone in his pocket rang rapidly. Obadiah picked it up, glanced at the number, and answered the call. Mr. Obadiah, everything is ready and you can start at any time. Very well, let's get started. I don't want any accidents to happen. After saying that, Obadiah hung up the communication. His men were easily solved by Elbert in the Imperial Cemetery, but he still had money, and it was a sufficient sum. Huge funds, and there are many people in this world who are willing to do anything for money. At first, Obadiah never thought of killing Tony like this, but he had no choice. Raza's backstab made him lose almost everything. Thinking of Raza, Obadiah's hand tightened, and the metal-cased lighter began to make an overwhelming sound, but this could not calm his anger. If it hadn't been for him, he would not have fallen to where he is today. If you let him know where Raza is, he will definitely understand what hell is. Just as Obadiah hung up the phone, on the other side, a group of gangsters wearing body armor, equipped with submachine guns and even rocket launchers in 2 helicopters had approached Tony's villa. Killian could still find someone to attack here, but Obadiah didn't. No reason can be found, and even based on the weapons and equipment of Stark Industries, this group of people is even more ferocious. Cast, observe the reaction of life in the villa, others are ready to take aim. After receiving the order from the employer, Captain Aston ordered everyone to start taking action. This is the largest order they have received so far, and they may all, even if they die, their families will live a truly rich life, so each of them will use their lives to complete the task. Boss, there is no life response. Cass put on the goggles provided by Obadiah and locked the mansion in front of him through the satellite password. However, the results of the thermal analysis showed that there was no life response in this huge residence. How is it possible? Where did Tony Stark go? According to the intelligence, he should not have gone out today. Aston quickly looked through the information provided by his employer and the travel records before they came, but they did not find Tony Stark leaving. Record of. Is it possible that a counter-detection system is installed here? Hey sir, I don't remember inviting you. Do you know what the consequences will be if you break into private property without permission? Just when Aston was confused, a gentle voice reached them. Their expressions suddenly changed, but before they could find the source of the sound, a blazing white light pillar penetrated the helicopter where Aston was, and a violent explosion destroyed all life on it. This is the price. Remember not to wander around casually in the next life. Captain. Damn it, what the hell is this, an alien? Fire. The mercenaries on the other helicopter saw Tony along the light beam, but they couldn't understand the steel battle suit. But they also understood this thing will kill them, so a lot of gunfire rang out, and 2 Viper missiles were fired from the helicopter's bomb rack. These are good babies I designed. I've been hit by them once. Looking at the familiar logo on the weapon reported by JARVIS, Tony had a look of disgust on his face, which obviously reminded him of bad experience. The steel battle suit nimbly dodged the 2 most threatening missiles. Tony approached the hovering helicopter at high speed against the sea. The bullets fired by the mercenaries could not keep up with his speed. Occasionally, some bullets predicted in advance could not hit him. He made a threat and in a blast it was all over. Is this your last resort? It really disappoints me. Tony looked at the wreckage that fell into the sea and turned in the direction of Stark Industries. Although he couldn't see the building, he knew that Obadiah was watching here. The next moment, Tony suddenly accelerated towards the building. It was time to end everything. How many years have it been since I was so close to success again? When Howard died, who knew how excited I was? I thought I could control everything, but I was wrong. Obadiah's eyes were filled with memories, just like people before death always think of their most profound memories. I thought I could develop Stark Industries, but those losers had no achievements. For this reason, I had to rely on Tony and return the power to him in exchange for a higher status. This was the beginning of failure. Like his father, Tony is a genius, but he is also a B*******. Why can't he be a researcher obsessed with scientific exploration even if he is a pure playboy and leave Stark Industries to me, can't he? I can guarantee that he will have enough food and clothing. I have sniped countless competitors for Stark Industries, but in their eyes I am just a dispensable obstacle. This is the human heart. It does not matter what you have done but what you can do for them. Looking at the rising sun, Obadiah didn't mind its burning eyes. His eyes were also burning with rage towards those who betrayed him, his enemies, and also towards himself. Originally, he was a loser, but he was also a loser. Will be the winner, Tony will die, and Stark Industry can only be decided by him. What is that? Just as Obadiah was immersed in his own world, a black spot appeared in the sunlight. Obadiah thought it was the shadow of a bird, although he didn't know why there were birds in Manhattan that could fly like this. But he soon realized something was wrong. The speed of the black spot was too fast, so fast that he couldn't even react. It was approaching him at an extremely fast speed. Bang! Huge amounts of impact instantly shattered the bulletproof glass in front of Obadiah's eyes and fragments flew everywhere. Obadiah subconsciously raised his hands to protect his face. When he put down his arms, what he saw was wearing a red and gold steel battle suit. Even the wily Obadiah was shocked by what appeared in front of him, but Tony quickly pinned him to the ground. The huge force from the machine had exceeded the limit that humans could resist, so Obadiah Bad-Eye was shocked and furious to find that he had become meat on the chopping board. However, what shocked him even more was the sound coming from the steel battle suit. "Oh, Obi, why are you so excited? I like the gift you gave me. Now let's play a game. I'll ask you questions." It's Tony. God, Obadiah always thought he was a genius, but he never thought that Tony could make such a terrifying weapon. Even if it was just the first contact with that kind of speed, that kind of power, Obadiah knew very well that if it was used as a weapon in a war, weapons and steel battle suits are of unparalleled value. "Hey Tony, listen, maybe we have some misunderstanding. Please let me go first." Obadiah panicked. He didn't know what Tony wanted to do, but being threatened by this weapon made him feel insecure. No, there's no misunderstanding. Let's get started." Tony's face under the mask showed a trace of morbid revenge pleasure. When Obadiah screamed, he grabbed his right leg and lifted Obadiah upside down. He got up and walked towards the glass that he had just knocked open. "No, Tony, you can't do this. I am your uncle. Let me go." Huge amounts of fear invaded Obadiah's nerves. He had never seen Tony like this, so terrifying, cruel, like a vengeful beast. "Haha, you are definitely my uncle, but are you sure you want me to let go now?" Tony sneered and put Obadiah outside the window. Even if the sun was shining brightly, the cold air kept coming to Obadiah's body. "It's more than 200 meters here. Do you want me to let go?" No, Tony, this is too dangerous. We shouldn't do this. You answer me." Ignoring Obadiah's words, Tony yelled directly. The powerful momentum made Obadiah at a loss what to do. Because of the reverse flow of blood from being inverted, his face began to turn red, but his thoughts were not so confused that he could not take care of himself. To the extent of, "Yes, Tony, I was wrong. Pull me into it and I apologize." Apologize? You want to apologize to me? Ha 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 ha, it's the second time. This is the second time. What are you going to do to apologize to me? Your life. Do you deserve it? Tony was still laughing. Obadiah's heart fell completely to the bottom. When he saw the steel battle suit on him, Obadiah should know that his plan failed, but people always have a glimmer of hope and then sink into the abyss of despair. "Tony, we can have a good talk. I admit that I was wrong. I did a lot of wrong things, but I also did a lot for you. Without me over the years, there would be no Stark Industry today. This is my credit." Obadiah knows very well that he is finished, but the top priority now is not to consider these but to survive. Only alive can he make a comeback. If he dies, he will have nothing. Aren't we talking? "Obi, you were the person I respected the most, except for my dead father. When I knew it was you who wanted to kill me, do you know how much my heart hurt? Huh." Calling out the affectionate nickname, Tony swayed a little and grabbed Obadiah's hand, which made Obadiah feel extremely uncomfortable. "I gave you a chance. In these 2 months, I never banned you. See me, I hope you can take the initiative to confess to me, and I will forgive you, but you haven't. You didn't even call me, so I am very disappointed. To this day, you have sent me a few more small toys. I just know that you are hopeless. Then goodbye, Obi, say hello to God for me. Tony looked at the struggling Obadiah expressionlessly. He should have been filled with joy at getting revenge, but if he was sending away the last close elder with his own hands, that would not be so pleasant. Because as Obadiah said, without him there would be no Stark Industries now, and there would be no Tony Stark now. So after returning from the Imperial Cemetery, Tony did not directly attack Obadiah, but only used various pressures to make him apologize to himself. This way, at least Obadiah would have a chance to spend his remaining years in peace. Unfortunately, Tony he underestimated Obadiah's persistence, so he will never give Obadiah a chance again. Stop, Tony, you are committing a crime, you will destroy Stark Industry. Obadiah's face had turned purple and his consciousness was a little confused. He glanced down unintentionally, making him a little dizzy. No, I won't, no one will know that I killed you. Tony never abides by the rules set by others. Obadiah thought that he would not do it blatantly, just like himself, even if he had ideas will also be carried out in secret. But he forgot that Tony's nature is not a playboy but wanton. Goodbye, Obi. After saying that, Tony released his grip on Obadiah, and his body of nearly 200 pounds gained extremely high acceleration in the air. Amidst a burst of screams, Obadiah emerged from this, disappeared from the world. Looking at Obadiah's blurry body, Tony wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't say anything. He took off again, returned to his villa, took out a bunch of valuable collections from the wine store and took a sip. Then he drank it in one gulp until his consciousness became blurry. Tony, oh, what happened to you? Jarvis opened the window and let out the alcohol. After some time, Potts walked into the villa and saw Tony, who looked like he was soaking in a wine vat. He quickly ran over to help him up. He ventilated. Jarvis, Potts, what's the matter? I'm very free now. No one can control me anymore, so I can do anything. Tony didn't know how much he drank, and it seemed like he was gushing out when he opened his mouth. He took a sip of alcohol, but the pungent smell did not make Potts disgusted. Instead, he paused and hugged Tony tightly. Tony, I know that Obadiah's death makes you sad, but you still have me, don't you? It will be lonely. After returning from the Imperial Cemetery, Tony didn't tell anyone that it was Obadiah who wanted his life, so Potts didn't know the reason. Instead, he thought that Obadiah's death was a huge blow to Tony. Will you always stay with me? Tony's eyes opened and closed, as if he would fall asleep at any time, but Potts still looked at him seriously. I will. Tony smiled after getting the answer and lay on Potts' shoulder with satisfaction and fell into a deep sleep. Seeing this, Potts helped him to bed. She came here today to inform Tony about Obadiah's death and the chaos in the company situation, but now she just wants this man to have a good sleep, and she will talk about the rest after he wakes up. Obadiah, president of Stark Industries, unfortunately fell and died. Was it an accident or man-made? Someone witnessed a mysterious flying object outside Stark Industries. Is it related to Obadiah's death? Tony Stark, chairman of Stark Industries, was so sad that he refused to accept all interviews and refused to participate in the board of directors. Stark Industries fell into temporary chaos. It was already the next day that Elbert received the news of Obadiah's death. After confirming the status of Pioneer Technology, Elbert was whitewashing Roz's group and selecting a few suitable black people to go to New York first. Leave it in the area for a few days, then mix it up and fish it out. Although it can't be hidden from some important departments, at least it can be exposed to the light. After registering their identities and doing some cover-ups, Elbert won't need to do anything in the future. Obadiah died so quickly. Tony's actions were really simple and violent. He is no longer Iron Man, just Iron Man, literally translated as Iron Man. He executes his own will. Sometimes that's what a hero is. There is only a thin line between the criminal and the criminal. Elbert threw the newspaper aside. This result made him very satisfied. Sometimes it doesn't take much to change a hero. As long as you push it at the critical moment, your fate will be like a hero. A wild horse, you never know which direction it will run. Speaking of heroes, Elbert wondered if he should dig out the Captain of the United States now, but actually thinking about it, it was unrealistic. SHIEL. D was probably close to finding his location, and it would be easy to cause trouble if he sent people there again. There was a conflict, and he was definitely the one who suffered the loss. Moreover, Rogers was not the kind of person who would be a mother if she had breasts. She would not unite with Elbert just because he saved him. He is the spiritual core of the Avengers Alliance, and it is not so easy for Tony to change. After all, Tony's character has problems to begin with, while Rogers is always upright, and he is also an unswerving American faction. What other heroes defend is justice, and Rogers defends American freedom. It's a pity about the Tesseract. I don't know where SHIEL. D hid it. If he knew the place, Albert wouldn't mind getting it first and using it. As a space gem, it should be able to provide Albert with a way to deal with the Ancient One. He doesn't need to do too much. Albert only needs to form a spatial anchor point to fix himself instead of being played by the Ancient One. Albert has the capital to fight the Ancient One head-on. Chairman, Mr. Scott was found dead in his home early this morning. The cause of death given by the medical examiner was gas poisoning. Caroline walked into Albert's office with an ugly look on her face and placed a death notice on his desk. On the table, there is a photo of a middle-aged man lying on the bed. If I remember correctly, this is the third time that someone is breaking the rules. Albert glanced at the photo on the death notice. Not surprisingly, the Wolf of Wall Street swore in front of him yesterday that Albert will definitely acquire Pioneer technology successfully, but within a day, he has followed in the footsteps of his two predecessors. Chairman, this situation must be punished. Although there is no evidence, Pioneer technology is the most suspected. As Albert's secretary, Caroline is not almost fully responsible for Osborne Industries like Norman's secretary, but she was in the second-in-command position. But the people she hired were killed over and over again, which naturally made her particularly annoyed. Yes, they are the most suspect, but what do you do first? Report them, or do you know some great people and are ready to take revenge? Albert's eyes narrowed, revealing dangerous information. Maybe he has been stuck recently. The burden on Lorraine is a little heavy, making her a little impatient. Should she find someone to share it with her? Definitely. Caroline subconsciously wanted to say words of revenge, but as soon as she caught Albert's eyes, her whole body suddenly became excited, and she quickly lowered her head and apologized. Yes, I'm sorry, Chairman, I was impulsive. It seems you are not confused yet. Forget today's conversation and go do your own thing. As for Pioneer technology, give it up for now. Seeing Caroline exiting the office unwillingly, Albert didn't say anything more. No one would be unresponsive when encountering this kind of thing. As long as it did not delay her normal work, Albert would not do anything to her because of it, but Pioneer technology. Albert's fingers on the table were tapping rhythmically. He originally didn't want to break the rules easily. There was SHIEL. D in front of him and Sorcerer Supreme in the back. Neither was easy to get along with, which made Albert even more low-key, but Pioneer technology has already slapped him in the face. Naturally, Albert will not tolerate his provocation. Killing is the lowest method, but since Killian feels that he is good at this, he should just play with him. Lazar, how have you been lately? Albert dialed a number and immediately heard loud music and all kinds of yelling. Without even thinking, he knew which bar Raza was staying in. It's definitely very beautiful, boss. From today on, the entire East District belongs to me. I can beat every one of those weaklings. Raza's voice was a little excited, although he used to be a warlord in charge of hundreds of people. Boss, how can a remote place like the Empire Cemetery compare with an international capital like New York? Oh, that's good. Find a separate place. The sound insulation over there is too bad. Albert was about to talk to Raza about Pioneer technology, but the sound from the other side became louder and louder, leaving Albert quite speechless. But this is not because Raza stays in the bar all day long and has fun. Although this kind of thing is inevitable, Raza still has the restraint and knows when enough is enough. The reason why it is so noisy is simply that Raza's room in the bar is poorly soundproofed. This is his fault. It was a deliberate request. Albert once asked him if he would not make a noise like this. Raza's answer to him was simple and noisy, but he felt excited. In the Imperial Cemetery, he had had enough of being quiet. Under the strong raids by the U.S. military, he could only survive as long as he was as quiet as a sloth. But now, listening to all kinds of popular music, watching the dance floor being wild and crazy, as a person who vents his desires, Raza feels that his life has never been so fulfilling. This is the empire he deserves, not that dark, lifeless camp. Boss, what's the matter? Raza's voice soon became quieter. This is why Albert likes this guy. He is very obedient and will think about whether Albert will do anything because of him. Feel happy or angry about the behavior. Someone wants to play with me outside the rules, so it's time for you to work. Bring your people and gather together. I will give you an address later and get rid of them. Albert looked at the computer. The location shown on the screen is obviously not where Pioneer technology is located. Killian is quite cautious and has specially arranged a scientific research base in the suburbs of New York. However, it is difficult to hide this from the eyes of interested people. As long as you check it, you can easily find it. Question. However, looking at the location of Killian's base, Elbert had some thoughts on whether to build his own laboratory. Even though he was no longer engaged in research work, many things were not suitable for Osborne Industries to handle. He also needed a place for personal matters. Don't worry, boss, I will mobilize my manpower right away. They are all absolutely loyal young men and they are already proficient in operating the treasures you sent. I promise to complete the task. Raza sneered twice and finally he could let go and work hard. Although he has been in conflict with the gangs in the East District during this period according to Elbert's orders and gradually expanded his power, this is New York and many things cannot be made big. This makes him, a violent person, very frustrated. He was really excited to go on a killing spree tonight. New York is always lively at night. As long as the weather permits, there are always countless young people preparing to start their own nightlife on the brightly lit streets. However, there is no such grand occasion in the suburbs of New York. As the moon rises here as they fell into sleep, no one noticed that dozens of bat-like figures were flying across the night sky, rushing towards the already determined target at high speed. We're still 2 kilometers away from the destination. Please check the ammunition. This is our first mission. If someone loses his chain later, he won't have to go back. Raza's masked face showed no expression. But his eyes were very bright, and it was obvious that the desire that was about to be released put his whole body in a state of high excitement. Report to the boss, all equipment has been checked and there are no problems. Let's go in. More than a dozen green goblin skateboards were hovering in midair. With the help of analytical instruments, they could clearly see that they were hidden under the farm not far away. With a huge building, this is their goal. Don't worry, check where the exit is first. The boss means that no one will be left behind, but we can't let them escape. From the 2nd to the 7th, you guard the exit and the others will follow me. Raza quickly scanned several suspicious places at the exit of the base. The manpower was allocated with a wave of his hand, and then roared down like a bird of prey slaying its prey quickly and accurately. Boom, boom, boom. Violent explosions kept ringing from the ground. People say that Green Goblin is an expert in biology, but he is also quite accomplished in applied physics, whether it is the Green Goblin skateboard or the miniature but extremely powerful pumpkin bomb, are all eye-catching products. Amid the screams that kept coming from the farm, Raza and his men flew directly into the building and successfully found the largest entrance after blowing up 3 houses. Hang the bomb back and prepare the submachine gun. Looking at the slightly narrow tunnel and assessing the defensive power of his battle suit, Raza decisively gave up on the art of explosions, took out submachine guns and flew into the tunnel, and started shooting whenever he encountered a living person. The sudden attack frightened the researchers at the experimental base. Not only did it not have any positive effect, but the supporting security guards had to send them away first before they could find the intruder. However, after this time passed, Raza had already led the people deep into the area. According to the research center, even if the Green Goblin skateboard slows down and flies at a low altitude, it is much faster than a human running. Leave me alone, you idiots, take the data away quickly. The research has reached a critical moment. If these data are missing, just wait for Aldrich Killian to twist your heads off. The person responsible for managing this research base, he was Killian's confidant. When he saw the security guard trying to send him out, he immediately yelled and scolded him. Given the importance of Extremis to Killian, if he abandoned the information and ran away today, he would not just be able to escape a small punishment, he would also be tortured before he died. Oh, what kind of information is so important that you risk your life? Show it to me. Raza, wearing a Joker mask, flew over, holding a submachine gun in each hand, aiming it at the person who was about to evacuate, security guards and researchers. Intruder, how could it be so fast? You take the information and leave quickly. I'll stop him. Seeing Raza arriving here so quickly, the person in charge's expression changed, and then he decisively pushed the security guard towards the pile of chemicals. Paper information on the table. Oh, you think you can stop me? What gives you the courage, God? Raza was not worried at all about the escape of the security guards. All exits were guarded by their people, and they would never be able to escape. But the guy in front of me, who looked like a researcher at first glance, actually boasted about Heiko and said that he wanted to stop him. Do you really think that the submachine gun in his hand was harmful? Yes, who else but God can create such a miracle? What Raza couldn't think of was that the guy opposite him decisively admitted that it was indeed God who gave him the courage. The next second, this weak-looking researcher, a big transformation happened right in front of him. His muscles began to bulge, bursting out of his fitted clothes. Tracks like the flow of magma spread all over his body along the lines between the muscles. A large amount of heat erupted on his body, pulling him apart. Jacques could even smell sulfur. I'm Telefac, what the hell is this? Looking at the researcher, in the blink of an eye, he has grown from a normal person of 1.7 meters to a monster of over 2 meters, even the well-informed Raza. He swore swear words, and the two submachine guns in his hands sprayed greetings from heaven mercilessly. However, the bullets that could easily take away lives at ordinary times had no effect on the monster in front of him. The bullet holes that penetrated the body were completely restored in the next second. The strong body was hit with terrifying heat, and Raza had to giving up shooting. He drove the skateboard to quickly dodge. Looking at the melted ground under the monster's feet, Lazar felt a chill. His combat uniform could insulate him from heat, but against such a high temperature, he felt it was better not to be hit. Damn it, I don't believe you can recover infinitely. Being chased crazily in a narrow passage, Raza tried several times. After seeing that ordinary bullets had no effect on him, Raza gritted his teeth and risked being accidentally injured, and directly threw 2 pumpkin bombs. Boom. The narrow passage amplified the sound and power of the explosion several times, and the Green Goblin who were chasing the security personnel in other places began to gather here. You can G recover. What kind of monster are you? Looking at the monster that had half of its body blown off but was left to slowly recover, Raza's face suddenly became extremely ugly. How should he kill this?
Hello, everyone. As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500+ novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.